series of budget study sessions. As I was working on this yesterday, I realized it was May Day, so we called it the May Day edition. But we have a lot of work ahead of us, as we know from the last two budget study sessions. But tonight we're going to talk. We had one hanging question from the second study session that was related to the first study session, the other contracts line. We'll quickly go through that, but then we're going to focus on some updated information with regard to P2ADA and its effect on what's going to happen across the several years of the multi-year projection, as well as look at some potential budget scenarios for the board to discuss. So we'll begin with the other contracts. That last section of other contracts, there's a portion of it that actually hasn't been encumbered, but the ones that were, where I could identify who the actual contracts were with, I've listed them here. The majority of the other section were the administrative departments. So the FICMAT study, our E-rate consultant, which is out of the technology department, as well as a couple from the maintenance department, our AHIRA inspection, and our loss control and risk management inspection. Keenan does that safety inspection every year. We contract with them. It's part of the riders of our insurance that we conduct those. They do an inspection every other year, and then a sort of a smaller term follow-up in off years. And then our energy savings consultant, that's a portion of what we do at Beacon Consulting, the portion that's not part of Prop 39. You recall when we got that very large rebate from PG&E, we do pay them for some of their work that they have been consulting. Most of the energy-related work has been part of the grant. Some of the water savings that they did for us with regard to some of our reconfiguration of our irrigation is not covered through Proposition 39, and so we pay a small portion of their contract out of the general fund.
What's the leadership associate? What is that?
That's the continuation portion of that contract that went into the current year with regard to the consultant for Mr. Sanchez after he was hired. Some of the work is in the current school year, and so that's what that's for. Now, to the less than happy news of the day, the P2ADA report came in, and unfortunately, we know we had a rather rough winter, and it reflects in our students' attendance during the past few months. Our average ADA over the past 3 years was 97.13%, which is really excellent compared to the state. We actually do very well in this criterion. When we look at this, even when we're having troubled years in the criterion standards, we look way better than other districts. We projected at 97.03 just because we had a bit of a downward trend and we weight the 3-year average. However, our actual ADA is 96.25. So I've revised the projection downward to 96.25 just to be conservative because we don't know what's going to happen next year. So we've revised the projections going forward by about 0.8%. So that's just yet one more hit to the budget in a bad year. So you'll recall that this slide is actually a replication of a slide from the first study session, but with updated numbers with regard to what 17-18 looks like versus 16-17 in the format of the local control funding formula. So rather than having a net decrease of about $600,000, it's now over $1 million in decreased funding, and that's strictly a result of the change of the ADA and its effect on the local control funding formula and the various buckets that make it up. So it's about $1.5 million. We will gain very slightly in supplemental and concentration. That hasn't changed from the previous report, but overall, it's a decline of about $1 million. So what that means is that our average deficit has also gone up. So we were at $4.3 million 2 meetings ago when we had this slide and we talked about it. And what I did is I ran the revised numbers with the reduced ADA through the projection to see what that does to the deficit, because it doesn't just affect the local control funding formula, it also affects lottery. It also affects some of our other funding sources that we raise or lower proportionately based on our ADA. So we ran those numbers through, and we're now at about an average of $4.7 million as opposed to 4.3 with regard to the deficit over the next 3 years if we were to do absolutely nothing. So that, of course, then changed some of the other slides from the first presentation that I just did a quick refresh on. So if we were to take workdays, for example, as a way to reduce things in the budget, it would now take almost 18 workdays, 17.8, to get us to the amount of the average deficit. And as a percentage of salaries and benefits in the unrestricted and partially restricted general fund, it's about 10%. So we looked at a couple of other possibilities with regard to our staffing ratios, just to see what would happen if we were to do something like, if we were to say all of the current staffing ratios, we bump them up by 1 student. What does that actually do with total number of FTE? At elementary, unfortunately, the way that plays out across the district, it doesn't even generate 1 FTE, just because 1 student all the way across gave us wiggle room in all of the schools, but potentially at most 1 6th grade section we could potentially reduce, but we would have to displace 16 students from one of our elementary schools to other various elementary schools across the district. But it actually did not generate enough open seats across the entire district to collapse any classes, any other individual classes at any grade level across the district. At secondary, on the other hand, it did generate a bit of savings. When you have a larger number of students in the same grade levels concentrated on a campus, it makes it a little bit easier. It comes out to about 2.77 FTE, which is basically 1 section each at Crossroads and Bridgepoint, 4 sections at the junior high, and 8 sections at Newark Memorial High School. On the other hand, if we were to look sort of across the board, if we bumped secondary up to 35-1 in all the core courses, if we moved Bridgepoint to 24-1 for its staffing model as opposed to the current 17, and if we moved Crossroads to 30 as opposed to its current 25, it ends up being 10 FTE. Now that number is unchanged from a previous presentation. So then Mr. Sanchez had asked that I try to come up with some methodology for creating some scenarios for you to kind of look at overall, what are we going to do? What are some ways that we can tackle a problem of this size? And so I came up with 3 possibilities that we can look at, and it's sort of 3 different methodologies of looking at how do we use cuts versus what we have left in Fund 17 over the course of the next 3 years to kind of get us to where we could go. So the first one, scenario 1, cut everything in the current year. Going into next year, it's about a $4.7 million cut we'd need to do across the district to make the cuts work so that we would be able to just cut once and have it be able to address the deficit going forward. Now that would address the deficit for the 3-year period. With all of the scenarios, the one caveat and caution that I have for the board out there is hopefully by that 4th year, we're well into growing, because the one thing that's still hanging out there, not just for us, but for the rest of the state, is PERS and STIRS, because PERS and STIRS continues to rise into 2020, 2021, 22, and PERS is now all the way out to 2025 in its projected increases. So it's not, that problem is not going away on the natural as the requirements to get the funding in the state retirement systems back to where it needs to be. The second scenario,
just to clarify,
yes.
The first scenario, cutting once now, does that mean that doesn't touch reserves, right? Or does it touch reserves?
Correct, but I'll get into more detail of each of the 3 on the subsequent slide. So,
Thank you.
so this is just the summary slide, and then we're going to go into some detail slides of the 3 scenarios. So scenario number 2 basically looks at cutting the non-salary things now, saving salary, basically leaving salaries alone for the most part until next year, except for a few vacancies that we know we have right now that we could just freeze. And then the third one looks at the reserves a little bit more gradually and implements reductions a little more gradually over the course of the 3 years. Now, there's not a huge amount of available dollars to give a whole lot of flexibility, but it does allow us to wait for the full implementation until the 3rd year. But about 75%, it allows us to gradually put them in. And I'll go into more detail about getting to the 4.7 million that we eventually have to be at by the time we get to the 1920 school year under the 3 scenarios. And of course, 3 is not the universe of scenarios. There's a lot of other possibilities in between. But basically, 1 is the harshest up front. 3 drags things out about as long as we can until we run out of reserves. And then 2 is somewhere in the middle. So looking at number 1, cutting once deeply and proportionately, this information is duplicative but changed to reflect the new numbers of the average deficit from what we discussed in study session number 2. And what we did is we took a look at it proportionately among the various expenditure types to see what level of cut would we need between salaries and benefits versus the non-operating salary and benefit, the non-salary and benefit operating accounts, to come up with a level of adjustment we would need. At the time, it got us to 4.3 million. Those numbers have all now been adjusted to get to 4.7, to basically keep the proportions within the budget the way that they've been. And so we come up with about a $4 million reduction in salaries and benefits, about an $85,000 additional reduction in books and supplies, about $500,000 in services and other operating expenses, small amount in capital outlays. It's very small in the unrestricted general fund and the partially restricted general fund anyway. And then about $92,000 decrease in our other outgo, which is actually the money that we pay to ROP, so we would actually have to do some negotiating with them because we've been under a sort of a gentleman's continuing agreement to leave their funding flat. Whenever you have a reduction in your operating expenses on the unrestricted side, the amount you can charge in your indirect rate will go down proportionately, so we've adjusted that as a negative reduction or an add back. And then a reduction of the interfund transfers into adult ed and child development fund. And at the bottom line, we get to about 4.7 million. Of course, the pros of cutting once and cutting deepest on the front end is you do it once. We don't have to touch the reserves anymore. They're going to stay at over 5.1 million. And the con, of course, is that, well, we have 2. 1, it's a very sudden and severe cut, and that can shake things up quite a bit programmatically and have some unintended consequences. But secondly, the biggest challenge of all of this is the fact that with certificated salaries and benefits, we're at a point in the year where we're a bit too late, absent natural attrition in the right credentialing areas, to be able to fully implement this, because you really do need to be more than a year ahead if you're really going to go through that type of a depth of cut on the certificated side, just because of the lead time that's needed.
The reserves of 5.1 million, is that all of Fund 17 and includes 3% mandated?
No, that's just Fund 17. So that's over and above the 3%. In none of these scenarios do we wipe out below the 3% reserve, because in the end, at budget adoption, we've got to get back to positive, and positive means at least in the third year out, we have our 3% left in Fund 1. But this is utilizing what's in Fund 17, it's over and above what's in Fund 1. So in all of these, it is assumed that the 3% reserve that's required in Fund 1 stays in Fund 1. So scenario number 2. We have currently vacant positions, a few of which are ones that we know for a certainty we're going to have going into next year, but some of which we are not yet sure that that is the case. And so we're looking at potentially freezing those vacant positions and only bringing them back as critical needs arise. And so we have about $425,000 in those positions that we've already identified. Also, since in the course of the past couple of weeks, we've had a significant number of certificated resignations, many of them in the special ed department. And so we are re-looking at all of our staffing models across the district in relation to any credentialing areas where we have resignations to determine whether or not we need to bring back full FTE or not. So that's something Catherine has been working on, and because people are still turning in paperwork, we don't actually have the universe of what things are looking like. We're still having people come in even at this late date, indicating they may not be back next year. Then in scenario 2, it also assumes the implementation of the cuts from the prior screen from scenario 1 with regard to anything that isn't a salary account, about 11% reduction. And then any difference needed between the cuts made going in once we are able to determine the final amount, and $4.12 million, which is what we would need in salary and benefit reductions of the average of the next 2 years, because this upcoming year would have already been gone, would come in the form of staffing reductions in 2018, 2019. So there are elements of this that are much more doable than option one, especially with related to certificated positions, but also it keeps the reserves in Fund 17 above the board minimum that's established in our policy of $1.5 million. And it still has some pretty dramatic program reductions, but they're deferred for 1 year, which does give us a little bit of wiggle room to see if we get any more growth coming out of the developments that are going on in the city now that some of these developments are actually finishing this school year. And hopefully we'll be filling up with people over the course of the summer. Con with regard to scenario 2 is it is going to use up about $3.5 million worth of the revenue. Of the reserve of Fund 17 out of the 5.1, correct. So that'll leave about 1.6. But because we fully implement the cuts in year 2, there's no transfer out of Fund 17 starting in the second year of the multi-year, which would be the 18-19 school year.
And we're assuming that the seat rate will be the same, will not be 97%.
96 and a quarter is what or 96.243, I think is what we're
No new growth.
very minimal growth related to the study with regard to the generation of new units, not any other growth at this point, and that's very minimal. It's between 20 and 30 students.
In the past, when we look at the final balance, there's always been a comeback that, gee, there's more money here than we realized.
Well, there will be.
Yeah, so that there's that piece too.
There is, and that'll be one-time money that'll come up at the end of the year with regard to budgets that don't get fully expended in the current year, and that is made up of two things. One, money that actually didn't end up being needed for whatever reason, either a program didn't get implemented, or potentially it's money related to a multi-year program that's going to carry over into the following year and then be expended in the second year as part of a multi-year. And we do have both of those scenarios occurring throughout the district in various programs. Scenario number 3, this is sort of the smoothest, not that it isn't still dramatic, but as far as implementing and sort of dragging it out over as much time as we can. It still implements the freezing of the hiring of the vacant positions that aren't critical. Instead of reducing all of the non-salary budgets by 11% immediately, it's a 5% reduction for 17-18, an additional 3 getting it up to 8% in 18-19, and an additional 3 getting up to the full 11 in 19-20. And then implementing roughly 75% of the remaining needed salary and benefit reductions in 18-19 and the final 25% in 19-20. It does delay things for the longest period of time. It does slow some of the impact with regard to the programmatic reductions that we will have to make. But on the other side of that coin, it does completely deplete Fund 17 by the end of by the time we get to the third year. And in the end, come 19-20, going to be at that level of reduction under any of these scenarios at this point. And it doesn't really leave wiggle room if we were to have some type of a further economic downturn. So those are the 3 current scenarios. And I intentionally didn't want this to go terribly long because I wanted more time for the board to be able to just have a discussion amongst itself with regard to the scenarios so that potentially we'd have an idea of a consensus going forward so that we can really get to the nitty-gritty of getting the budget built because we only have at this point 1 more board meeting in May at which to potentially have study session 4, and then the first board meeting in June is actually the first reading of the budget, absent us scheduling additional June board meetings. So we're now to the point where we've got to sort of really move forward on the implementation. And in the meantime, between now and 2 weeks from now, I'm actually going to jump off of budget development for a little bit because of the qualified second interim. We have to file a third interim report. And April 30th just came this past weekend. So we're going to be pulling all our data together to pull the third interim report for our next board meeting, and then from there we'll go on to budget development for the next board meeting after that.
Another component, we still have not gotten a letter from FICMAT, We know that there'll be a fiscal recovery plan in their recommendations. I was under the impression we would see something within 8 to 10
Yeah,
days.
that's what they said.
And Patty said that before they left, they said 10 to 20 days. So we reached out to them, we haven't heard back, but hopefully we get that sooner. And that was just the letter, that wasn't the full proposal. The full recommendations, what I understood was 6 to 8 weeks. So I want to double check that as well. So that is coming, but in the meantime, we got to start approximating what's our theory of action, so.
Did we get a demographic update?
Demographic study is actually in process right now. We had some data issues which we cleaned up and got that all certified off and sent off, and we're just awaiting the generation of the reports right now.
Do you have some initial indication about how that might affect our enrollment numbers and whether that could be factored in?
Not yet, because I haven't actually seen production out of the report yet. They have to start with, they go through and comb all the data that we send them, then they have us cross-check everything against seabeds and then certify it. And so that happened about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. And so they're in the process now of doing the rest of the calculations. I haven't seen it yet, so I really couldn't comment on whether or not we have a significant change.
I mean, we can.
I'm not
ask them-
expecting a huge amount of change because most of the development we knew about during the last study. Some of it has accelerated timeline-wise though, and so that might have some effect, but I don't know
That's
yet.
what I was thinking, with everything going up so fast. It'd be nice if we had some enrollment projections that we could put into this 3-year projection.
Well, I have 2 thoughts on that. Number one, I think by playing it safe and assuming that our enrollment is flat, I think is one. And then the other element is that we're planning to like a multi-year cut. And so even if we do see a huge spike for some reason or another, we can make an adjustment on that second and third year in regards to further cuts if we need to. So I don't think it's critical. It's important. I don't think it's critical that we have that demographic report. And when
Yeah,
it's done-
I don't disagree. I'm
Yeah.
just thinking if there's any way we can.
It would be nice.
I guess
It's another assurance, right?
Yeah.
my thoughts are, sorry for being late, I think my thoughts are, if folks that are moving in see that the district is doing cuts, then it's more of a incentive not or to attend the district because of that. So we can't rely on that piece, I think, in terms of.
Yeah, this might create a lot of negative buzz in the community, and, well, it will, and that could affect enrollment negatively.
The one caveat to that, thankfully, is that for once, we're not alone. Fremont actually proportionately has to cut about the same size. They're looking at 23 million in cuts ongoing at Fremont.
Well, how can they get caught when they have increasing enrollment, and what happened to them?
They have very, very low supplemental concentration. So they're very near fully funded. So they aren't going to have increases over time because their supplemental concentration rate is under 20%. So they're quite low.
But they've gotten the money earlier, so it's not a bad thing for them. I mean, they got their money
Yeah, I mean,
earlier than we got it.
They knew all along what they had. I mean, did they just build a bad budget, or?
Well, I can't comment because I haven't done that analysis. That's a great question for you to ask Raul someday, but in the
Yeah, I think I
meantime,
will, 'cause
that was just the numbers that were reported by that district several weeks ago.
I guess going back to us, it's like, I see page 3 in terms of, I know I wasn't here, but there's a 3-year deficit spending. I have a feeling that this is going on longer than 3 years. It goes back further, so going back to
10.
us, that's
At least.
unfortunate, right? Going back to us, then we've obviously been building a bad budget if we've been deficit spending. So let's figure out how we kind of address that. So I guess it's getting people's thoughts on the different scenarios.
No, you got a copy.
What, do you have a preference, Mr. Richards, in terms of the different scenarios? Because I know our superintendent, you guys have been reaching out to the community groups, constituent groups, and where you guys fall with this.
I believe it'll probably land is somewhere between scenario 2 and 3, maybe a hybrid of those two. I think scenario 1 is aggressive and can cause a lot of unintended negative consequences and some very negative perception from the community. And it's severe, and I think it's also not a good faith effort with our partners in our unions. So, but I had to put that up there to illustrate the magnitude, and we felt that it was important just to say, okay, here's kind of 3 approximate theories of action, and my intent was, and Brian's intent was to bring this to you guys and kind of help us approximate, like buffet style. I like this part of scenario 1, but I'd like to blend it with number 2, or I'd like to take 2 and blend it with 3. So I think that's kind of what we're trying to figure out is, where do you guys feel that the most comfort, and then we can do more work and bring that back for the next study session and have it more accurate to what is the spirit and the opinion of the board. So that's kind of where we're going.
I mean, the
I had
big,
some
the big
questions.
piece is the
Go ahead, Jay, I'm sorry.
yeah, the big piece is the staffing. It's always a big piece because that's our high percentage of the budget. So to get rid of $4.5 million on staffing is a killer. And the last time we did this, I remember it was in 2000, there was a 2002, something like that. There was a big going through in the community. didn't know-
2010.
Well,
also.
we've done it a number of times, and no matter what people come across to say, this is gonna cut the money, it never cut the amount of money that was anticipated because other things had to go into place and fill it. So I'm really wanted FitNAC to come through with something that might be a help in terms of being realistic, in terms of making sure the cuts are cuts, rather than just destroying a program for very little value.
Just to clarify before, I know you have questions, Member Rodriguez. Patty, FICMAT had shared with us, we still haven't heard back from them, you called. And
I sent them an email, yeah.
so they said, they told you 20 days for the letter and then
Anywhere from
8
10 to
weeks for
20
the
days.
report?
Right, but there were other information that was needed, and so maybe that's
Yeah.
an aggregate add.
Part of, I think, what we need to capture is, they had promised us some deeper protocols to help with this process. So let's at least ask for that. And I'll call them again tomorrow. Mr. Member Rodriguez, I think, had it.
Yeah, I know. I know occasionally we bring up, where we've been, and I'm hoping that at some point we don't do that anymore and we focus on what we need moving forward. And in spite of board action and board requests to the prior administrations to make the cuts, a lot of times we were told that they were and they weren't, and we went back and forth. And then the other thing with prior administrations is that they decided that if we had reserves, like in Fund 17, that rather than make cuts, that they would use it to continue programs. And the kids that have graduated from Newark during that time have benefited from the extra programs. And but now we're at, between a rock and a hard place, so we have to make tough decisions. I really like scenario number 2. It seems like it's the easiest way to go. I just had a couple of questions, Mr. Richards. On the ADA projection, do you look at that monthly and then change the projection, or is it done? Would it be done after the May revise, or that wouldn't have anything to do with ADA?
It's been updated for P2. P2 happens in late March, early April. It's the end of the 4-week period prior to April the 15th. And so our P2 ended at the end of March. And so this is the actual P2 numbers. So that sets the bench for next year.
So it's not looked at again if we have a sudden increase in students, like in June or August when the school opens? We wouldn't look again at the ADA at that time?
Two different things. A sudden increase in June would be irrelevant because, well, we're 2 weeks out from graduation at that point, and ADA has stopped ticking. With regard to local control funding formula, we'd pick up a slight piece for lottery, but that would be it. With regard to in the fall, we do rebench everything based on CBEDs in the first Wednesday in October. So by then we'll have adopted the budget. We'll also have closed the books. But then in October, when we get the CBEDS number, we then recast the projections as we're going into first interim. So when we do the first interim report, which comes to the board in December, it picks up all the information from CBEDS Day, all of any other adjustments, the posting of any carryovers from the prior year, and all of those come as part of the first interim report.
I didn't really, I didn't mean that we would have an increase in June. What I meant is, the applications we get for new enrollment could increase, and that would be effective in August. So even if that happened, we wouldn't actually look at it until October.
We wouldn't rebench until CBED's day unless we had so significant of an increase that all of a sudden we were having to add FTE and add classrooms all over the district. If that were to happen, we might try to recast numbers really quickly just to see how much revenue we'd be generating. If we had a sudden spike at the first day of school, we'd start looking at it. But usually enrollment doesn't kind of settle down until you get to almost the end of September. As different districts open, some start as late as the day after Labor Day. So it does take a little bit of time at the beginning of the year for enrollment to settle down. So the state measures everything on the first Wednesday in October.
Now, Fund 17, you said we have about 5.1 million right now.
Correct.
What would, I mean, the interest on it is minimal, I would imagine, but what?
Yes, in the current environment, that is
Right.
true.
So what other things would happen to increase that? Or is there anything else that would increase Fund 17?
Well, an increase to Fund 17 is only going to happen if we were to, for whatever reason, cut deeper than what we're projecting, generate some money, and the board were to give me a directive to pay some money from the general fund back in. The one way that we did put some money into Fund 17 when we had the sale of Russian was a temporary item that the legislature had put into law, and that window sunset the week after the board took action. So we took action at the last possible board meeting to request it. We got approved by the state allocation board at the last possible state allocation board before the window closed to move funds from Fund 40 into Fund 17. That window is now closed unless the legislature takes an action to reopen it. And if they were to do that, then we could say, all right, we're going to take another piece of the proceeds from Russian, or if we were to have another sale of property at one of our other properties, then potentially we'd be able to do that. But again, that would require an action of the legislature to open up the transfers between 40 and 17 again.
And then I had just one last one. You said you were looking at the RP, which is 92,000, I think?
No, the ROP is almost $1 million that we
Oh,
get
I mean,
back.
I'm sorry, 920,000 or something. So on that one, we normally in the past have just rolled it over. So are you suggesting that there's probably ways that maybe we can not give them the whole thing?
Well, it'd be a conversation that we would have to have amongst the members of the JPA as far as if we were to move that forward.
But the savings wouldn't be that much there, I would imagine.
Well, we only put in, we projected proportionately across all the expenditure types. So it works out to be between 10 and 11%, and that's what number is built into that number.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, well, with regard to ROP, we have at least one more year on the MOU where we have, we've told them we'll maintain the funding, isn't that correct? So one more year on that?
I'll need to go pull the MOU. I know it definitely covers the current school year. This is my third year in the district.
I think it covers
This
next
may
year.
be the last year, actually. I'll have to double check. It may be, there may be one more, or this may be the last year.
Yeah,
It was
I think it
to
was-
coincide with the funding period of the initial grant that they went after, so that they could secure their funding
Yeah, I
stream
think
for
we
the
have one more year
grant.
on that. So, but after that, you know, we can open negotiations, so that'd be the second year out here. One of the things I was thinking about was, and I think I've just lost my train of thought. Let me think.
Can I jump
Oh,
in?
yeah, it would be, I was thinking about things like adult ed that we fund from the general fund and child development. Adult ed, we're part of that consortium, and we've never really looked at how much money we're getting from that consortium and whether or not we can cut back maybe to nothing on that 100K and take advantage of the fact that there's duplication of services in all three communities and the junior college with offerings for adult ed. So that would be one. So in other words, instead of just proportionately looking now, we might want to cherry pick some areas where, you know, it's and stay away from our kids and maybe hit adults or hit families that, for childcare, for example, that we're not actually required to subsidize. So that would be my comment.
So when we speak about ROP, and we're going with the formulaic approach as far as, let's pay an X percent of our portion, in relations to what our other districts. Can we put on the table just the overall rate in which they charge all 3 districts? Because from just in hearing, that their reserve is massive, right?
Right, they went, our proportionate rate
Right.
is good, because they went back to 1997 or whatever year it was.
Right, but
And-
aren't they holding 100% reserves?
They are holding 100%
They've all got
reserves,
high reserves.
and, yeah, and they just gave
It's nice.
themselves a 3% salary increase.
Right.
So I think, I think our district should get together and play hardball with them in terms of, they can't be giving it salary increases and then 2 years out now.
Well, I wouldn't say
When they-
play hardball because I don't want to start negotiating in public, but just look at all avenues, because if they're holding 100% reserves, maybe they're charging too much of a premium for all of the districts, not just Newark, right?
There is a portion of the funding that they have had in the past that they stopped getting this year, and that's their portion of the lottery. Adult Ed and ROP were taken out of the lottery calculation this year, so now there is no longer a transfer to them for that portion. The number that's been sort of locked in was the old ROP dollars that were the old categorical programs. As of the time at which it rolled into the local control funding formula, the amount that we contribute is that same locked number. We haven't been collating it, but we also haven't been proportionally reducing it for the fact that our ADA is down. So it's just been that one hard number continuing forward.
But if you look at the proportionate services in terms of the number of students that get served, we proportionally get a higher percentage of students.
I still like to see a full study breakdown of that, though. I mean, I know I've heard it several times now that, we have 900 students in ROP and et cetera, but just, for me to have a document to see, okay, who's enrolled in their, part-time singleton class purpose at the high school level versus who's utilizing the program to its intended, design by
Yeah, and
having
it's-
it since
you can-
be there half day.
You can also have some savings if we have more classes that are at the high school, where the kids don't have to go to the RP center.
Well, that's true, but if they're counting that towards our number and then therefore dictating our percent how much we're paying, we're then actually losing money, in my opinion.
Yeah,
We don't lose ADA because ADA
Right.
covers.
No, but I'm
So-
saying.
So we don't lose ADA, we
the
gain for every
percent.
ROP student, we gain money.
One of the reasons they have such a huge
reserve.
reserve is that they every year get some property tax money. And it's been pretty consistent every year, but they say, well, yeah, but we might not get it in the future. And so they don't budget for it. So I think the thing that we can argue is that they could budget for that, which would reduce their annual budget proportionally and should then reduce what we pay into them.
Well, in my opinion, I don't know how New Haven, from a budget standpoint, is doing, but if 2 out of the 3 districts that ROP is serving is hitting financial difficulties, and yet RP as an entity is holding 100% reserves, that seems kind of off to me.
Yeah, it seems obvious that we might be able to save 10% there.
I have a meeting with them May 10th, the superintendent. So I'm taking notes.
Yeah, so if we cut back our amount, till they get their reserve down to a better level, that gives us time to
Yeah.
Well,
save money.
what have they used the reserve for in the past? They've used it for construction.
No,
They use it for large equipment.
They held on to it
They don't use it at all.
until they didn't use it all until about 2 years ago when we kind of pushed them to have a plan for using it, and so they use maybe $1 million out of it, but it keeps growing, so they still have over 100%. So they really haven't known how to spend it.
Do they have bonds outstanding for their building, or has it all been paid for?
Oh, I can't remember. Do you know what that is? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Mr. Richards, the negotiations we're going through right now and I know we kind of stopped, that's not in here at all, right?
No,
Okay. So that naturally would change it.
yes.
Okay.
So and I think a few have already mentioned, personally, I prefer scenario 2 as well.
Yeah.
Simply because number 1 is quite unrealistic at this point, considering the, the deadlines and whatnot for certificates, staff members. But looking at 2 and then see what we can do to move, so I would agree with Supervisor Sanchez where it's a hybrid of 2 and 3. That buys us a little bit of time, but I would shape more towards 2 than 3, because the further we get into scenario 3, I think we're really playing with fire with very little wiggle room.
So you're
I
asking
would-
some consensus, I'm sorry, Nancy.
I-
We're asking for consensus on what scenario.
Well, let's
We
have
can't,
some
we
more
can't make a decision
Right.
here,
Yeah.
so in terms of, but we can get a framework of generally where we're at in terms of these scenarios.
Right.
Yeah, which is the one that you're most comfortable with, and
Yeah,
if
one
there's
of the-
elements of others that you'd like me to apply, we can do that.
One of the things that's not here is whether or not we want to maintain a reserve above the 3% reserve. It seems to me we should have some kind of reserve above our 3% reserve that we build into the plan, whether we do the second scenario or a combination of the second and third scenario.
Well, we
We
do.
do have
Isn't Fund
1.5.
17, doesn't that add on to the reserve?
No, 3% over, for example, we could say we want to have 3% over the base 3% reserve as a little cushion that we want to maintain no matter what you design.
Plus Fund 17
Is
at
it
the
3%
minimum.
mandated by state? Is that what?
Yeah,
That's the
it's
state
3%
mandate,
mandated.
We can always have more reserves, right?
No, I just want to make sure that in terms of,
Right.
because I thought what I heard you saying at first was dipping into that 3%, but then I
No, we
heard you
can't.
going over 3%.
No, I'm saying maintain a 3% reserve over our minimum 3% reserve. So
So in other
we
words,
have
maintain
a
a 6%.
6% reserve because you never want to get down to that bare 3% reserve.
So the answer to your question, or actually to Ray's question to your item is, you're both right. You can have an additional reserve in Fund 1 above the 3%, that's totally fine. Fund 17 does count towards available reserves when the state is assessing the fiscal health of the district. They look at what's in Fund 1 unrestricted plus Fund 17's available reserves to determine how much the district has in available reserves when they're looking at the percentage, when we look at the criteria and standards. So both of what you said is true. You're just approaching the same question from two sides.
I don't care if it's in Fund 1 or Fund 17. It's the same, it's reserves.
Well, we're at 6%, I think, if we add Fund 17, I think.
Currently, we're above that number.
Above.
If we were to go with scenario 2 and leave the 1.6 million, we would be just under 6% because 3% is about $1.9 million for our district.
I thought we had said we wanted to have 1.5 million above the 3%. Thought
Yeah.
that was-
That's current. That's in the
was
board
currently-
policy that
yeah.
established
Yeah,
Fund
that's the policy, right.
17 in the
Right.
first place.
So essentially, 2 would allow us to pretty much do that.
Yeah.
Right.
But it would use up any of the money.
So-
And the reason we haven't used up the money in the past is because at the end of the year, for whatever reason, money was not spent.
Well, two things.
Was that-
That's a piece of it, and that's what's happening in the current year as well, that we're not fully expending at the rate we anticipated, which is a good thing. The second piece is, as we talked about 2 board meetings ago, to the extent that we've had one-time money coming in from the state, we've utilized that to not have to pull out of Fund 17. Because in Elaine's last budget before I came in, there was a $3 million transfer projected. That year we transferred 2.3, my first year in the district, we transferred 2.3. The next year we got $3.1 million worth of one-time money. So we wiped out all transfers from Fund 17 for that year because it allowed us to do so without affecting programmatically what we were doing. And that replicated something else that had happened prior to my coming and prior to Elaine's coming, I believe, when Fund 53 or 56, there was an old fund that doesn't exist anymore, that something similar had been done many years ago. It was in the last FICMAT report.
Tax override, it was,
I want to ask a question in terms of scenario 2 and 3. It's the first bullet point for 2. It says freeze hiring of vacant positions except where critical needs exist. and then scenario 3 just says freeze hiring of vacant positions. Was that,
It's the same thing as
Okay.
scenario 2. I just was running out of room on the slide, and I didn't want the font to get any smaller.
and I was trying to want to clarify, because for me, I'm like, oh, if that means that there's all vacant positions in terms of scenario 3, scenario 3.
The numbers, when you actually, if we were to go line by line into the detail of the numbers, which I did give you as a handout, but I did not plan to go through line by line with everybody, you'll see that the numbers are actually the same.
Okay,
For that
I see.
particular line item.
Okay, so then that doesn't help my other point. I was in terms of just saying, I would be, I like the idea of just freeze hiring as a show of, like, is there good faith in terms of trying to stay away from the kids as much as possible. Where I'm at, it's funny when you said between 2 and 3, you kind of ran my mind in terms of being left out like this at 2.5 scenario in terms of figuring out how to merge that piece. I kind of like Member Thomas's idea in terms of like adult education, and if that would help support, because I know it's unfortunate that we would have to do something like that, but it is adults versus the kids, and if that means that way would help the students, then that's we're gonna have to do cuts regardless. So we're gonna have to make those types of decisions. So I can.
And I think we need to stay away from them, or the idea that we have to do proportional cuts in all these areas. I think we need to look at the needs in every area. And of course, personnel is going to be the biggest area that we're going to have to find cuts. But all these other areas, we just don't want to say, hey, we're just going to cut proportionately, because we may be able to cut more in books and supplies, for example, and defer something. But yeah, we still have to pay our PG&E bill. We can't cut that proportionally.
I think before we can talk much about cuts is, we spent this money in the FitNet study, and that's got to be sort of the basis, I think, of what we work on. And so I think we're sort of trying to make decisions without all the information here, except as we want to indicate our approach. And
Well, we can't make a decision anyway.
Because we
so-
can't, right,
Well,
yeah.
we can't make a decision right now anyway. It's just more of a discussion of what kind of where we're at, like the framing of, like, it seems like everyone's on board in terms of being like, we're not going to do cut once deeply, unproportionately, just the vibe that I get, because not only would it have the effects of, I mean, yeah, you save money in terms of budget, but you destroy programs, and then it's that whole sense of fear and the culture that you create.
Isn't really the only thing we're talking about here is the rate at which we're going to spend the reserves? Right?
Eventually, the cuts are going to be made. They
Yeah,
have to
the
be
cuts are
made.
going to be made, so if we're going to spend the reserves at a faster rate,
Yeah.
or a slower rate, and scenario 1 is you cut them at, I mean, you
You do it right now versus.
do it right now and keep the reserves, so, you know.
Yeah, so you're
So
right.
do
You're right.
we keep the reserves? My thought is we spend the reserves. We spend the reserves down to that 1.5 million that's required to maintain,
Well, then you're talking about all 5.1 million.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think, we know it to our employees, because we're going to be asking our employees to suffer through this. In other words, what we're saying is that thank goodness for the sale of Russian and the ability to do that 4 million, because we should have done this a lot earlier, and we wouldn't have had to have gone into that 4 million. But given that we have the 4 million, I think we owe it to our staff to spend it.
There are places where you can generate income so that, for instance, adult education, where you would just charge more for the classes. Same thing with daycare. And so there are places where you can charge a little more so that you don't have cuts as far as having to lay people off. But the amount that the district pays toward a certain program proportionally might be less, because you're generating income by charging a little more.
And there's other revenue generating things that we can do in more of a kind of revenue increase plan. I mean, there's other areas where we do, that we're discussing right now, with, like, community use is an area. print shop is an area, not that we would make, that's not a short-term solution, but it's part of a larger long-term solution that might help offset some of that. I also think that the idea of, we missed the window this year, but next year applying for state preschool, even though that isn't a direct big hit for us, long-term, I believe we could yield more enrollment. You know, maybe trying some additional partnerships with Cadango. I think there's multiple areas where we can also have that other tier of, is there other ways we could generate some revenue, even though if it's modest over time, that helps. But I think that, in my mind, scenario 2.0, 2.1, that's a little more, once we know kind of the thinking, then we can go deeper with that and be closer to accurate. The other thing that does happen is there's some unknown things that we don't know yet from the state that are pending to happen. And, you know, if that number helps us, that reduces the overall cuts over time. But we are building the plane as we're flying. But I definitely, for the record, want to say I do believe in keeping more than 3% reserves. I think that's really critical if we can. In my just rough estimation, if we can maintain a total reserve of somewhere between 4 to 5%, I think that's probably going to be, if I were to predict, we might land somewhere in there. But at least this kind of gives us an indication of where Brian and I need to do a little more deep digging and really evaluating. I think the other concern is, how do we define non-essential staff? And I think that's really difficult. And I think we have to really look at, you know, where are the areas that are not essential. I mean, one that is easy is if we had a position that has been vacant for 2 years and we've not been able to fill it, no one's going to argue with you about that. But if you're talking about a special education or a math teacher, different conversation. So that's going to take some due diligence on our part.
So maybe in terms of the framing of kind of, as a scenario 2.0 and diving deep, it's also connecting again with the partners and figuring out like, okay, what are your suggestions in terms of, so the framing would be like, well, everyone is essential, however, everyone is going to feel it, right? So we can just, so we don't couch it as that way, but we would say, like, we have to figure out how we can work together to come up with some solutions for it's going to affect everyone.
You know, no, we need to work with all of our partners, just because that was one of the biggest elements that I did hear from FCMAT and that we heard in the exit report, was transparency is critical right now. And going through this process, whatever, even the process we're starting with today, and as we learn more from FCMAT, we'll reach more of their recommendations. That we can't have people feel that we're hiding something somewhere. And we have to have them know that we're really wrestling with this and that it has to be very public. So I agree. I think that's really key. Any more comments, or I'm hearing a lot of interest in going deeper with scenario 2. Any other comments or indications from you guys, opinions? We can go in that direction then.
I have just to kind of piggyback on what Member Pirzada said, as far as the way you describe different things as we're moving forward, to maybe look at talking about the position as opposed to people.
Yes.
So it just, I mean,
It's
you're
difficult.
getting to the same way, but I mean, same place, but
Yeah.
just doing it a little bit
I agree.
easier to deal with, I guess.
No.
And
Okay.
I'm assuming at the same time we're actually looking at revenue generating. I know we briefly mentioned it. But
Yes.
there are timing which we put into this year and possibly facilities use, you know,
Right.
and just find ways to.
Yeah, we have been, I've been looking at pushing those forward, and we're just not ready to share those with the board yet, but it is under construction right now.
I know there was a time before for the public to be heard, but since there wasn't a presentation until now, can the public be heard now?
Sure.
I'm fine with that.
Public comment? Ms. Parks?
I'd just kind of like to say that this is something that you all have been hearing about for quite a while, and I'm very disappointed that it's gotten down to this point. I think that the community has spoken previously about the fact that they did not want to go down this road. There were warnings that were given. There was concern expressed previously. Now we're down this road, and as was portrayed, the can was kicked down to where you're now having to make severe decisions. I think that it's really sad that we're here again. I think that I agree that it needs to be discussion regarding positions and not people. I think that the transparency caveat is definitely something that needs to be done. I know that I had mentioned to Mr. Sanchez about going to PTA meetings, going to site council meetings. I think that the parents that are severely involved need to be, they need to be your adversary, I mean, not your adversary, sorry, they need to be in this with you, and they need to be able to, educate everyone, because you don't want the negative press. And unfortunately, that is going to befall you, but I just think that it needs to be very transparent. I know before there was discussions about like maybe getting rid of librarians, and that rallied people around. So this is good. This goes back. This is not the first time that this board has had to deal with, or a board in this district has had to deal with these severe cuts. And I just hope that this is the last time that such a severe cut has to take place and the deficit spending stops. If you just go through your warrants on a monthly basis, there definitely still seems to be some expenses that, are kind of iffy. And maybe it's $50 here and it's $200 there, but every dime counts.
If I can make a comment, I think that we're never going to find a silver bullet that's going to take care of the budget problem for all time. Because we have an adjustable 3-year out. Every year we have 3 different years, and every year we have an unknown in terms of income. So this is, whatever decision we make today is not going to solve the problem. It's going to be an action that we're doing now, and then next year we will have to look at it and see what's happening and then make the action there. Because there's nothing set. I mean, we do have a contract with our employees, but there's so many unknown things that we have to make these decisions every year. And as Ms. Parks had said, having been either on the board or in the audience for a lot of years, we've been through this process a lot of times, and we're going to go through it again. I don't think there's any way we're going to not go through it. We can't solve a problem for 10 years from now today with what we do. All we can do is do the best we can with the 3 years that we have now.
Well, I think though, not push back, but it seems to me that we do it year by year by year. That's why we have a 3-year projection. So I think what's happened in the past is we budgeted deficit spending.
Yeah.
And that, we have control over that. We can do budgets year to year that does not budget deficit spending. And that's got to be a conscious decision. And you and I and Ray have been on the board 13 years, and you more, Ray. And every year we say balance the budget, which means balance the revenues with the expenses. And every year we get a budget at the very last minute that projects deficit spending. So it's a conscious action that we don't have to make in the future. We don't have to consciously budget deficit spending. I think if we're lucky enough to build up our reserves, that doesn't mean that's money to put into deficit spending, especially for ongoing things. We can save it for something that's really nice for the kids.
But I think the point of the reserve is to allow flexibility when unknown things happen. And that's why we want to have above the 3% that we have to have. The state requires us. So I think that every year is a new time because it's another 3-year combination. And so you have to do the best you can with the knowns. And when the unknowns come and hit you in the face, you're going to have enough flexibility to be able to do it. And from that perspective is the reason why this Fund 17 is important to me, to maintain something there, because that gives us flexibility. It's the reason why I wanted $4 million to be there, because we have to function as an organization, as an institution, and pay our bills. And we can't always do that in the way we would like to do because we don't always have the information in the timely factor to be able to do it. And I agree with you that there never should be deficit spending planned in the budget. I agree. Unless something comes up and you say, this is a known thing and this is what we're gonna have to do for the next year, next 2 years. But it should not be a modus operandus that we automatically
And it
assume.
should be a one-time thing, it shouldn't
Well,
be
it
for
should be,
ongoing.
right, and hopefully the ending budget or the ending amount in the budget will be, because we're conservative, hopefully there's more money at the end of the year.
And we
That
can
we-
build back our reserves.
No, exactly.
One of the things I want to say that I think we all agree on, but I want to make sure I utilize it. I really believe that the way we've approached this, at least one of the elements, is that it makes sense to adhere to the projections. In my experience, projections are generally pretty accurate, and I'd rather estimate based on that and be conservative and still have a plan to aggressively increase enrollment and impact the revenue in other ways. And then if we get that additional enrollment, that's a windfall instead of approaching it from overconfidence and stepping into that. So I just want to say that, because I know Brian and I've talked about that, and I think that that's the safest way to proceed for us, especially with the other variables that are happening at the state level with stirs and purs, and there's just too much of a moving target. So I think the more conservative, I think we plan for the worst, and then we work towards the best, and hopefully we can offset it over time in the next 2-3 years to where we have some ways to solve it. One of the, on fund generating side, I really believe that we have an opportunity at McGregor campus to really significantly increase enrollment of high school kids. I believe that. But we need to put a plan in place. We need to be able to have them really act more like a, what I would call a student re-engagement center, where we're getting kids back on the phone and say, hey, you're only a few credits away from graduating. Where have you been? How can we help you? Let's get you back on track. So it may not be all of the solution, but it's definitely part of a larger plan. So that's an area that is currently under construction. But I just wanted to speak to the projection piece.
With like a job center of connecting people to like, we're supporting you with work.
One-stop center.
I was gonna say as a next step, or I know you're doing the next steps in terms of the internal budget thing, but I think maybe we can work on, one thing that I've noticed that a lot of times that we have issues with, or it's not until after the fact that we're caught explaining to the community after the fact of what happened. Maybe we can do some sort of budget forum where we're doing the messaging and saying, like, a lot of times what happens is people are like, well, all I hear is that the district is cutting. It's like, well, what are you doing? You're just hoarding the money, the reserves. You have $5 million in reserves, and then people don't get the message of, well, actually, no, we're spending all the reserves, or whatever, we're spending a portion of the reserves, and we still need to cut because of these reasons. So maybe we can figure out, or you can help us figure out, if we do some sort of budget forum where we invite the community and everyone's there, and we have the united message of, this is our message from the district, that we are doing fund generating initiatives, we are spending reserves, we are addressing our costs, and this is what it's going to take because of all the different reasons. And this would, I know it's hard, I'm not a communications expert, so in terms of the messaging.
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because I had just texted Patty I have this short contract with Valera Communications Company. They can help us craft a communications plan.
Yeah, so it'd be the messaging.
And that's the idea of taking it to every school site, every SSC, and having those conversations with those people, so.
Well, yeah, and even broader would be the community, because I know one of the things that, like, I noticed in terms of being outside on, as not part of within the school community, is that if you're not a parent, but you're still involved in community care, like, you don't know about what's happening. So it's like, if someone wants to outreach, like, hey, the schools are having issues, we're asking for a community effort, here's where we're at, and then this is what we're asking. And then that's when you get, all of a sudden you get the parents, the Google, Facebook parents who are like, hey, well, I have a matching thing with my company, here's $5,000, Google will match that for $5,000, and all of a sudden, like, it's not going to address our problem, but it will help at that site. It will help build the infrastructure or maintain the infrastructure that we're going to have to pull away. So, I mean, as I need a little bit of help, so if we can get on the same page, and I can help. I mean, I think we can all help in terms of supporting some sort of budget form, because I know it's a short timeline we have. But
Yeah. but-
even if it's here, but we push the community to come out and say, this is what we're doing, like,
Well, I think that the end of this month is a prime time, because at this point, we perhaps will have some answers, and at least some more information. And then hopefully, we might find answers for people in the community. I mean, there's an awful lot of smart people out there that may have an experience or an idea that might be something that would trigger something that might work. But I think you're absolutely right.
I like the idea of the budget
Absolutely
forums.
right, absolutely right.
I really think we need to do a little bit more. When you start having these discussions, sometimes rumors go out, and,
Sometimes.
okay, especially in Newark. But we have a superintendent now that likes to deal with that, right away. So I know Member Thomas and I had talked about visiting or going to the different site councils and stuff, and something always seems to get in the way. And I know all of us would like to do that, but I wouldn't want you to go by yourself, Superintendent, so if you're going somewhere, if you can invite one board member.
It may not be safe.
You know, I was actually thinking that maybe one approach is to do some regional, like 4 regional budget input sessions where a cabinet member with the board member would be present. And then we can kind of divide and conquer, so to say, so to speak. And because then we can have a deeper conversation and just provide cookies and water, or just water, or nothing because we're cutting budget.
and just saying, all of us are good at hustling and in terms of passing out flyers, and everyone has done that.
But I agree with the end of May. The end of May is going to
Yeah.
be, we'll know more
Yeah.
unknowns.
And I think the company that's helping you with messaging, it's going to be important, I think, to frame it with things that the community can relate to. So they can relate to what the state is doing to us on retirement.
Right.
And our need to fund retirement.
It's a big piece.
Yeah, and they can probably relate on other areas too about how costs are going up for childcare and all these other things that we may have to look at.
Right. Okay. I'll work on that.
I like that regional idea, and just let us know, that we can figure out in terms of
Yeah.
how we can make it to.
Well, I have a supervision sheet we'll talk about later tonight. But I don't have this in the queue yet, but let me work towards something. Because that could be even the same night. We're just in different locations.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's nice, is we could hit it right after the end of May, towards the end of
One
May.
night.
One night in different parts of the district. One night show.
No, that'd be
Or
great.
maybe 1 week,
Yeah.
because that would give people different,
Yeah, let me
because
see.
Thursday's bad for me, so.
I'm just thinking we find places to host
That's true,
it.
if it's
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Right.
Friday.
Right, or 3 days.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Wednesday or Thursday, just knowing the pattern of the board. But let me work on that. Okay? Brian, anything else that you had? I know.
Thank you.
Then we have a 15-minute break.
Well, you
Right.
still,
What do we have to do?
so we're okay on the consensus piece, right?
Well,
I think I have a good feel.
The feel is, we never voted, but I think that number 1 is not doable. As much as I would love to,
Cost
kind
chaos.
of
No voting, please, no formal
voting.
action,
intellectually,
formal decision, please.
yeah.
Consensus is not voting.
Well,
But it is.
Well, I would like to say.
We have an
I
indication.
support
No, it's just the board giving me direction as I'm
There you
going.
go.
You don't actually vote on the budget until I bring it in June, so I'm just
Now,
giving direction.
could you review the differences between scenario 2 and scenario 3?
Yes. So if we go back a couple of slides, so now let's just look at scenario 3 for a minute. So the first bullet of scenario 3 is the same as scenario 2 with regarding to the freezing of hiring of the vacant positions that aren't deemed mission critical at the moment. The second item, the non-salary benefits, the scenarios 1 and 2 get to the full amount of projected reduction immediately in 17-18 school year. Scenario 3 starts by cutting at 5% for the first year, an additional 3% to 8% in the second year, and then gets to the full implementation in the third year. The scenario number 2 fully implements the remaining position cuts that we aren't able to implement based on what we have frozen or other available attrition, get implemented immediately in year 2. In scenario 3, 75% of them get implemented in year 2, and the other 25% get implemented in year 3. So those are the differences. And then the cost differential of that spends down the $1.6 million that would otherwise have been left in Fund 17.
Okay, so that scenario 3 does not save the 1.5 million.
Correct. Scenario 3 fully expends, and that's why when you go to this little detail sheet here, scenario 3 at the end, the remaining fund balance in Fund 17, the very bottom line of the page, starting in 18-19 school year, you get to 0. Whereas in the others, there's money available still left in the fund.
And I'm not comfortable with that, because if there's any kind of blip in our state budget, then we have 0 wiggle room.
Or if we have a catastrophe, earthquake or flood,
Right.
yeah. Okay,
And then I think that another thing we've got to do is we've got to take work out of the system. Because, and I know Ray doesn't, Mr. Rodriguez doesn't want us to go and talk about the past, but when you make cuts and then you triple or quadruple your overtime, you're really not making any cuts. So it's,
Agreed.
so I think it's going to be very important, like Ms. Crocker said too, a cut's got to be a cut. In other words, you can't say we're going to drop classes that aren't completely full, or are under, and then 2 years later, they're back to being half empty again. That's the history of this district. Cut is never a cut. It just
I think that
slowly fades
concludes our,
away.
that concludes our report then, and I think we have good indication.
What time do we need to?
Thank you. So we have open session at 7 o'clock. I don't think we have a
closed
hard
session?
set time for a closed session.
Yeah, we could
We
go
could
into
go
closed
into it
session.
now, that would actually help us.
Yeah,
Actually,
let's
have
go
to leave
into
to do
it.
another
Yeah.
presentation.
I included it now, should there be room for it, so I think you should probably do it now.
Okay,
Okay.
because we are rolling out by the 7 o'clock.
Great,
Right,
that's
that's
great.
the only thing.
So hold on, let me, so as we enter closed session, we are going to be pulling item 3.14, which is conference with legal. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for attending the May 2nd, 2017 Board of Education meeting of the Newark Unified School District. Members of the public who wishes to address the board are asked to fill out a speaker request form located at the rear of the room. Please state your name clearly for the record. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes and once per item, and the board cannot respond to items not on the agenda. Reporting out for closed sessions, we met and discussed. We discussed and met on items 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. We did not, as that item was pulled, 3.4, did not discuss 3.4, and then also discuss 3.5 and 3.6. No action was taken. Going on to 6.1, I need approval for the agenda for tonight, please.
So moved.
Moved by Member Rodriguez. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Thomas. Please vote.
Oh dear.
Okay, 5 ayes. Thank you. On to 7.1. student reports from Newark Junior High, McGregor, and Newark Memorial High School, starting with Newark Junior High School.
Hi. Our apologies for the absence last month, and I would like to start off by giving past information. The Leukemia Lymphoma Society Kidneys for Patients was a fun and pricey competition with a total of $4,100 raised, which was the highest raised at NJHS. A couple months back, the Under the Sea dance took place on February 24th, which everyone seemed to enjoy. After, the second challenge day was held, containing a new group of kids. This challenge day was held on March 7th. Next, a few days after, was our school's multicultural rally on March 9th. Each day contained a different culture. Recently, leadership has made acrostic posters consisting of teachers' names in support of Teacher Appreciation Week. Coming up soon is our 8th graders' farewell dance that we hope everyone will attend. Finally, 4th quarter is already here, and we're working on keeping every student successful so that they can attend field trips with friends and promotion with everyone. Thank you.
Before spring break, we held an Easter Carnival. Easter Carnival, there were many games that the students enjoyed. The most popular was Catch Your Dinner, where you had to throw a basket over a plush bunny in order to receive tickets. The tickets were used to get candy prizes. Within the Easter Carnival, there was an egg hunt with 12 golden eggs. You can retrieve a special prize finding a golden egg. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Leadership students are currently planning an activity in honor of this month. Coming up is the last rally of the year, where leadership will skit.
Thank you. On to McGregor. No from McGregor. Okay, Newark Memorial. Yeah.
Okay. So this past Saturday was prom, April 29th at the Galleria in San Francisco. We had about 450 students from our student body attend, including several students from other schools. The student body had a really good time, and they danced the night away. We had a live performer, and we had a really good DJ this year, and I'm sure all the students really enjoyed the free taco bar. It was a really good prom put together this year by the student body and also led by Ms. Sharon. And we just like to thank all of the chaperones that came that night and was able to deal with all of the crazy students that were there and just really enjoyed the night, especially for the seniors and juniors, as this is their last few years here at Newark Memorial. Speaking of seniors, grad night will be on Saturday, May 20th, just to make sure to mark your calendars down and go to that. There is lots of AP testing going on right now, including today and then the next few weeks. So lots of students are very stressed out on campus, but they're all powering through it just to get this extra college credit in. And really just excited to get through this. Our last lip sync battle will also be on June 2nd. This is always a big hit for students at Newark Memorial. We have MCA live stream it on YouTube if anyone would like to tune in and watch. And you can also come on campus if you're a board member or just get a pass and actually watch it live. It's always really entertaining to see all the students put together a little act. Our Spirit Week was fun. We had it right before spring break. We had a lot of different groups of people show their pride on campus and show their school spirit. I went a bit overboard every day, including making ramen for all my classmates on college day, but it's all for showing spirit and pride on school campus, and I'm sure a lot of other students also went all out, and it was really nice to see that. Our MVL Mission Valley Championships for swimming, it will be this Friday and Saturday, and we are hosting at Newark Memorial, so all of the schools within our area, all of the Fremont schools and Unicity will be at our pool competing to go to the North Coast sections. We have lots of NCS contenders this year that have been getting really good NCS times, so if you would like to come by this Friday and Saturday and just see our athletes on their way to North Coast sections, I'm sure that they would love for you to see them. As of all of our other sports, track, field, softball, lacrosse, baseball, they are also coming to a wind down. So their last few games are coming up these next few weeks if you would like to come and watch. And then to end it all, it's now that time of the year where the teachers are putting the days in counting till the school year ends, and everyone's becoming to be in a little frenzy with the warm weather and everything. So we're all just super excited because finals are coming up and just pushing through it to end it right. And not just to end it all, huge congratulations to our robotics club this year. This is the first year we've had robotics club in a while, and they made it to regionals this year. So a huge congratulations to them, and I'm sure they're getting awarded later tonight. And yeah.
I have a question of student board members here.
Okay.
I went to Shin Park where they had a lot of pictures. Was there any pushback in having the junior prom and the senior prom at the same time?
Like, was there any conflict amongst the student body?
Right, because we've had a tradition of having separately, and
Yeah.
I fully support having them together, but
No, there's never really a conflict because all of our classes at Newark Memorial, we all don't necessarily stick to our own class. We all kind of intermingle with each other. So there isn't a total of like class rivalry. So everyone likes being together and they don't mind it at all. The more the merrier.
okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. 8.1, recognitions and celebrations. This is for Birch Grove Primary, Ms. Gainey.
Good evening, President Huynh and School Board, Superintendent Sanchez, Executive Cabinet, and Ms. Sandoval. I don't think I've seen all of you since I've been back from maternity leave, so what an exciting night to be here to celebrate the very first time we get to honor Birch Grove Primary School. Before we begin, a thank you to the teachers and Ms. Sandra Schrotlin, our clerk, who did the bulletin board in the back with all the artwork and writing that's there, and I know Ms. Sandoval helped with that as well. And of course for the teachers and families that are here to support the school tonight. All right, so we would like to begin with our Certificated Employee of the Year, Ms. Michelle Leipelt. Mrs. Leipelt is a transitional kindergarten and kindergarten teacher this year. She is not only an exceptional teacher, but an exceptional person. She is creative, knowledgeable, and patient. In her calm, cheerful, and respectful way, she helps her students learn to solve problems for themselves, speak in a group with confidence and clarity, acknowledge when they can't do something, remember their manners, and be kind to each other. Her students will leave her classroom in June as very socially capable little people. Her positive and very helpful attitude shines every day. She takes time and is willing to show her colleagues how to make cute Google Docs or add her cuteness stamp whenever asked. No matter what else she may have on her plate, she's willing to help. It is noticed by so many how much time and effort she puts into her planning, classroom decor, and her patience, the patience that she has with her little TKK kids. Mrs. Leipelt is a leader on our campus. She approaches challenges with a solution mindset and is eager to do what's best for kids. As a member of the BGP leadership team, she brings perspective and voice to the group and is organized and a reliable contributor. This year has been full of change and transition, and Michelle has faced the challenge with a smile, stayed focused on the work while being open to new ideas and always looking for ways to improve her craft. She took it upon herself to pursue a professional development series offered by the County Office of Education, using her weekends or developing guest teacher plans in her absence during the school day. Michelle Leipelt is truly shines bright among the many stars. Her students, their parents, and her colleagues feel so fortunate to be on her team. Congratulations.
Would you like to say something?
Thank you, Mrs. Gainey. This is my 19th year now in Newark Unified, and it's just always an honor to be able to teach our little learners, the youngest, the most eager, the sweetest, the most loving. It's my privilege and my honor to teach them, and to know that I'm doing a good job makes me feel good. So thank you so much.
Well, we'd like to come down and take a picture with you and shake your hand, so stay right there.
I should add, for each of the ladies that we're celebrating tonight, the thoughts are not only mine, but cut and paste from what the colleagues have said about their nominations for this evening as well.
Heard it too.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any family?
Sure,
I have my husband and my boys up here.
The next young lady we would like to honor is our Classified Employee of the Year, Ms. Doreen Kataki. Miss Doreen, our office manager extraordinaire. Doreen has gone above and beyond over the past year. As the office manager, she has supported a tremendous amount of change in connection with the school merger, transferring the smallest of details to accommodate the new school name to taking on huge, impactful projects. Be it creating moving packing slip systems or updating the school map, coordinating registrations, or ordering supplies so teachers have what they need, she is the best. She powers through a to-do list like it's nobody's business. This year, Doreen has supported 3 different principals. In my absence while on maternity leave, she helped Mr. Chamberlain and Mr. Stang quickly get up to speed on the excitement of a busy Birch Grove primary. She took on much more than her share to ensure the office and the school was ready to open their doors on day 1. She also supported Birch Grove Intermediate in the absence of their office manager to ensure they too were ready to roll on that first day. Mrs. Kataki is organized and diligent worker who dedicates her time and energy to ensuring that Birch Grove Primary is the best it can be. Congratulations, Doreen.
I just want to thank Mrs. Gainey. I'm super lucky to have such a wonderful principal. Miss Catherine Ingham Waters has been wonderful to me this year. I feel like I've had 2 wonderful principals to work for. I'm lucky where I work. The whole staff, the teachers are amazing with the children. The families are wonderful. I'm lucky, and I know it. Thanks.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. Here we go. Smiles, everybody. Congratulations. Thank you.
And last but not least, our student of the year, Miss Gianna Campos. Come on up, Gianna. So exciting. Gianna is one tremendous young lady. Her kind heart and positive attitude is contagious to her classmates, teachers, and all those around her. She is a responsible and hardworking student who has accomplished so much in second grade. Gianna is a stellar athlete and was recognized for the month of October for her excellence in being cooperative. We celebrated her and the other winners during our VIB, or Very Important Bulldog, lunch. She is honest, polite, and a true friend. We are honored to see what life has in store for this well-rounded little Birch Grove Bulldog. Congratulations, Gianna.
Speech.
Thank you, Miss Gainey, and I'm glad I get to be at Birch Grove Primary.
Bring mom and dad and your sister.
President Nguyen, that concludes our celebrations recognitions portion this evening.
Thank you very much. We do have a comment from Member Preciado.
Yeah, so I did want to say congratulations to all the winners. I wanted to especially say thank you to Miss Leipelt for being an amazing teacher, because she teaches my daughter, and all of what Miss Gainey just said is completely true, and I can attest to all of that. Thank you.
And I can rest assured that there was zero influence.
I didn't know.
There you go.
I didn't know until now that the names are not even on here, so.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item 9.1, Superintendent's update.
Just a brief update before I launch into the rest of the agenda. I do want to introduce the sole finalist for Principal McGregor Campus, who will be on your agenda later this evening to take a vote, but I do want to introduce her. Julie Calderon, would you please step forward? Ms. Calderon was unanimously brought to the top of the candidates, and I'm bringing her forth as a recommendation to hire. But just wanted to give you a chance to say a few words if you like. And
thank you, Superintendent Sanchez. I'm really excited to be joining Newark Unified board members. This is an incredible opportunity for me. I'm very excited. I've been working in Pleasanton Unified, but I'm very excited to come back to this side of the East Bay and do good work with our community. So I look forward to getting to know all of you and getting to know all the families and students in this district.
Great.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Okay, first item is we shared a press release relative to 3 of our schools being recognized by the California Honor Roll. I believe you received that via email. And just want to shout out to to Lincoln Elementary, Newark Junior High, and Newark Memorial. Were selected by the Education Results Partnership and Campaign for Business and Education Excellence as a 2016 California Honor Roll schools. Will be more information later we'll be sharing with you. Just wanted you to know what that was and to publicly put it in the record and congratulate those schools. Next item is kind of a fun item, but I will hand it over to Assistant Superintendent Salinas to do our next item.
Yes, good evening. So Cal State East Bay has come up with a brand new area to recognize, and we are very proud to announce that Principal Catherine Ingham Waters was awarded the Cal State East Bay Alumni 40 Under 40 Award. So she's one of 40 Under 40 who have been recognized for their leadership, their tenacity, their accomplishments, and really their personal endeavors and how it relates to organizations and to our community. So she was celebrated last evening, but we wanted to publicly acknowledge her on this wonderful recognition. And so when you see her, please congratulate her. She is one of the 40 Under 40 for Cal State East Bay.
And introducing our next 2 segments will be Principal Huerta. If you could join me for the Chevron Challenge. Tell us about it.
Good evening. This evening, I'm here to celebrate and recognize the work of our teacher and STEAM coach, Department Chair of Science, Jerry Liang, and the engineer design team, the rocketry team, and our robotics team. This year, our engineer team participated in the Chevron Design Challenge, and I'll have Mr. Liang discuss what that entailed. We also had our robotics team participate in an event earlier this school year, which is the first challenge. And then we also had our rocketry club make the finals, the regional finals for the team, American rocketry team. So I'd like to introduce Jerry Liang, teacher, and our STEAM coach who's doing an excellent job with these students, and he can share with you their accomplishments this year.
Thank you so much, Principal Humberto. Thank you. Well, it's been one heck of a year for NMHS, for our STEAM programs this year. So first off, I'd like to really highlight is John Brazil right here, and Raiden Romero could not make it, and Mavis Stone is here as well. They, just a couple weeks ago, they competed at the Chevron Design Challenge, which is a state competition. We were at the regionals at Amador Valley High School, and what they had to do was design a storage container, and they had to design it with AutoCAD and give a presentation. I believe I sent it to most of the people here, and so you could watch their presentation. I got a lot of great comments from our competitors, even at American High School, who placed third place. They even said that they thought that ours was better than theirs. Sadly, because of a computer glitch, we didn't quite make it to the state finals, but had we been awarded those points, we would have made it to the state finals. So it was very, very close, and these kids worked really hard. Came in during the spring break and worked with me, and they did a great job. So please give those guys a hand right there.
Come on up. Have them come on up. Have them come up. They are our customers.
Oh, yeah. Come on down.
Now wave to everyone. Wave to everyone. What would you guys say about this experience? If you want to, what would you, a few words you could say about what this meant to you? I think she's telling you to go first, I think. Just something that meant to you. What did you get out of it?
Out of this, I learned that time management is very crucial and that it's very important that if you find that you're having trouble with something, you should definitely consider the fact that you have two very awesome people next to you. Those two very awesome people for me were John Brazil and Rainer Romero, who, as you guys know, isn't here tonight. But honestly, they did support me throughout the entire thing. And Autodesking, this is basically a program where you design machinery parts. We just began learning this last year, and Mr. Liang, he took the time to actually re-educate us on like how to do that in just 2 days. 2 days, and we did catch up with a lot of things, and I really appreciate him having taken the time to actually bring us to the brought us to the competition, for having registered us, and for actually taking the time to just acknowledge us, like have the entire school district acknowledge us. And again, thank you to John for being such a great team member.
John, what would you say?
I really enjoyed this experience, but behind it all was Mr. Ling. He's a really great teacher. If you don't know, he's retiring this year. I'd like to thank him for all the time he spent with his kids.
Great.
All right, and we're back to TARC, Team America Rocket Challenge. It's been 2 years. We had a layaway. 10 years ago, we won the national championships, and we're making it to finals again this year. And let's get these guys over here. Come on, Team 8, our crazy Team 8 right here. And let them talk to you about. All right, why don't you guys introduce yourself? And we're leaving next Wednesday night for the finals, which is next Saturday.
Where are you going? Where are you going for the finals?
The TARC National Finals is held outside of Washington, D.C.
Right.
in Manassas, Virginia. So, yeah.
That's great. Congratulations. Would a couple of you like to say something? I don't have time for everybody. You want anyone to say something? Who's the team communicator? Usually there's one.
Aaron Valdez.
There you go. There you go.
I just want to say it's an honor to be, representing Newark, a national competition that's so far away. It's such an honor to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good choice, team. Good choice.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. And
one more slide.
And one more slide. Earlier this year, we formed an FTC robotics team, and my goal was just basically I found out that they actually held the regionals at our school, so that's what I found out last year. And then I said, how do we join this? And so we got it started up. And come on down, guys. These guys basically was a rookie team and qualified for NorCal Regionals, which is only for the top 48 teams, which seems like a lot, but there were a lot of teams entered into this contest, and they were way more experienced than us, and we were still just buying parts. So one of you guys talk.
So who's the team spokesperson? There you go. So let me help you. So what is the most meaningful part of this for you? What did you really get out of it?
The most meaningful part was definitely building the team and taking on a challenge that at first we thought we would never be able to do, but through just taking it bit by bit, working together, managing our time, we were able to actually accomplish building a robot and actually qualifying for regionals, which we never thought would be possible in our first year. And even people at regionals were saying, rookie teams don't make it that far. And we felt very honored to be able to do that. And mostly I want to thank Mr. Liang for putting all that time and money into us. He didn't have to do anything, but he still stuck with it just because he believes in us and he believes in STEM. And he just wants the best for us.
That's great. Thank you.
So thank you so much, and I just hope that you guys keep, funding programs like these, and know that we got a lot of great kids, and all we have to do is just put them in the right position, and they'll succeed. Thank you.
Mr. Liang, before you step away, I want to thank you for your leadership.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate what you've done, and I know that it's been challenging at times, and I know that you love kids, and I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you so
That's
much.
all. Simple.
Thank you so much, Superintendent. And thank you, everybody.
Member Crocker, you had a comment?
Mr. Lang, Mr. Lang, I think that this kind of program is fantastic, but it's also sponsored by people that are putting the money in. And so if there's anybody out there that really likes this kind of program and knows of companies that want to sponsor, the name of the school is Newark Memorial High School. The teacher is Mr. Liang, and he would be very happy to accept any kind of support that out there that you might have. So I know that we've got a fantastic watchership. I'm not sure how people are watching our meetings, but pass the word. Oftentimes there are corporations that have money that would match money. So it takes money for these kids to go. It takes money to buy the equipment. I think once you shoot a rocket, you have to start again from scratch. You can't recycle a lot of stuff. So money is very, very important, and support is very important from the. It's putting Newark on the map, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that concludes my report at this time. President Nguyen.
Thank you. 10.1, Special Education State of the State.
Yes, good evening. This evening, we'd like to have Director of Special Education, Ms. Jennifer Willis, and Principal Amanda Gallagher. We're going to share an update as to where we are now. We wanted to continually to communicate the status of some of the programs that we're doing, and also have the first brief introduction, really, to Ms. Willis, who is our new Director of Special Education.
Good evening. I wanted to say hello to our wonderful board and to Superintendent Sanchez, as well as to our community. So we're going to be providing an update and let you know where we are in special education now and where we want to go. If I can figure out the clicker. There we go. All right, so some of our basic statistics. Right now we have we have 733 students who are in special education. That's about 12.2% of our population of students have special education services, and that's compared to 11.7% across the state, and nationwide it's about 13%. So we're close to the average. We have a performance indicator that we are working on as directed by the state, which is that we need to get our students into the general education environment more. So we have, the goal is more than 80% of the day for our students. As of June 30th of 2016, we had 41% of our students in special education, more than, I always get these mixed up. 41% of our students were in special education less than 20% of the day. Sorry. The goal set by the state is 49.5%. 2%. We are making some changes this year, moving students into more inclusive environments. We are anticipating by the end of the year, we're going to have about 50 or more % of our students are meeting the state mandate. So we're really excited by that because we really believe in LRE in this district and keeping kids in, accessing core curriculum in general education. Another area that we're working on is our graduation rates. Right now, our graduation rate for students with disabilities is 70.7%. And 26 of our students with disabilities are eligible for speech compared to the state average of 21%. We compare about the same to other districts that have a similar demographic, similar number of students who are EL, but it is a little higher than I would like it to be, and we can always do better. Okay. Some of our challenges this year. We identified that we needed some very intensive professional development, and we had some due process filings. So in response, we provided a 3-hour training by our attorney in collaboration with myself on special education, effective IEP practices, the importance of parent participation, and how do you include parents in IEPs effectively, as well as the importance of least restrictive environment, keeping kids in the general education as much as we possibly can. We also provided a 2-hour training in collaboration with myself to our school psychologists, as well as our other staff on effective assessment. Another challenge that we had this year was our teacher shortage led this year to RSP teacher vacancies and increased caseload, which has been hard on our teachers. We are responding to that by really working hard on early recruitment strategies and temporary contracts. Some of our successes, the more fun part. We added 4 inclusion classes to the existing 3 at the junior high school level. That's very exciting. The staff is actually very positive about it, and they're doing a great job of supporting our kids. We also held 2 separate Special Olympics this year. One was in another one of our SELPA districts, one we held, and we have one more coming up this week. So we're really excited about that. We increased least restrictive environment options across the district. At Music Elementary, we have a special day class inclusion program where our students who are more impacted by their disabilities are being effectively supported in general education with the co-teaching between a special education teacher and a general education teacher. Then we have our RSP inclusion classes at junior high and also at high school. We're working hard to make sure those are successful. We also piloted the strategic instruction model with really positive teacher response. We had 7 teachers who were trained and who have been implementing and gotten coaching on using the strategic instruction model, which is a fabulous way of identifying and working with strategies for learning, not just necessarily the reading skills or math skills, but strategies for how do I think through, how do I problem solve. Been very effective. We also had very positive teacher response to our professional development opportunities this year. Okay, so I thought I should show you our California Schools dashboard, which is kind of our indicator of how we're doing by the state in our different groups. And I wanted to tell you, actually, I did a screenshot and the top one is wrong. My apologies. Our graduation rates for students with disabilities are 70.7%. Okay, so 70.7% of our students, which is fortunately is a decrease by 3.2% from past years. So it's really an area we need to work on a lot in the coming years. In our English language arts assessment, grades 3 through 8, students with disabilities were very low. We had 368 students who scored in that very low range. And then students with disabilities in math, also very low, 367. So we definitely need to work on closing that achievement gap, and that's why we're bringing in things like the strategic instruction model and some other things I'll talk about in a minute. Okay, so our goals for this coming school year, 2017-18. We need to increase graduation rates and educational success for students with disabilities. We need to increase students' access to Common Core language arts. Strengthen inclusion practices to continue increasing access to LRE, least restrictive environment, which will also help with closing that achievement gap. Reduce over-identification of students who are English language learners as needing speech services, and continue to build on parent outreach and education. Well, the following years, our goals will be to identify and adopt evidence-based math intervention curriculum, continue to support effective implementation of evidence-based English language arts intervention, continue to increase graduation rates, and continue to build on parent outreach and education. Okay. So our professional development for 2017-18, what we're planning for speech and language therapists, how to identify an English learner that needs speech because of a processing difficulty versus the English language development itself. For our psychologists, we're going to concentrate on teaching them how to use the patterns of strengths and weaknesses model instead of this discrepancy model that we've been using for years. It's something that's been coming in special education for many years. Most districts in California have adopted it. It's a much more dynamic model with more data points to consider for children. We're also going to continue coaching in the Sunday program, which is an Orton Gillingham reading instruction model, highly evidence-based, over 70 years of research supporting it being effective. We're going to continue supporting the strategic instruction model, K-12. We're going to work with teachers so that they understand how to implement multi-tiered behavioral support. Work with our instructional assistants on multi-tiered behavioral support so they can support the students as well. The next bullet point is actually redundant. SLP is distinguishing between English language and SLI, speech and language. And the last one for our speech and language pathologists, Michelle Garcia Winter Social Thinking Curriculum. Curriculum and instruction. So I'm going to work very closely with educational services to develop and enact a plan to meet the needs of students and staff, to develop a plan for secondary students to better access all core curriculum, develop and enact adoption plan for math intervention for 18-19, and work on a plan to ensure all classes have access to those core curriculum textbooks and all of the supplies that they need to access the professional development. All right, inclusion. We are very much in support of continuing our inclusion efforts. We think it's what's right for students, and we're starting to get some really good outcomes. So our schools are Music Elementary. We have 3 classes supporting up to 18 students designated as special day class. We also have RSP inclusion at junior high and at high school. For the professional development, we have brought in West Ed to provide 1 day of training last fall. Santa Clara County Office of Education has provided a 9-hour training in the evenings that about 8 of our staff have availed themselves of, and they've found it very helpful. 1 day of planning are planned this week on May 4th with Wendy Morawski from Teach LLC. She's a very, very well-regarded instructor in universal design for learning, which is how we differentiate for all the different grade levels, not just students with special needs, but all students. And then for next year, continuing with the UDL, 1 day pull-out training, 2 days shoulder to shoulder, and we're going to do monthly 1 to 2 hour training and planning sessions. We just really think inclusion is the way to go for all of our students. I think the benefits are not just for our students with disabilities, also for all of our teachers, all of our parents to understand that all means all. All of our kids can succeed and will succeed, and that we can support them. Okay, so a couple of changes you should know about. We're moving our moderate to severe classes that are at Birch Grove Primary to Graham Elementary to ensure less transitions and continuity of program, because right now we have our upper grade, which is our upper grade moderate to severe classes located on a primary campus. So we feel that we need to have them be able to access the continuum. Then we're moving our 4 preschool SDC classes from Whiteford to music in the fall. Working hard on that and meeting with teachers, meeting with everybody to make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible. We're adding one K2 special day class to Kennedy Elementary to accommodate incoming students. So the move from Whiteford. We've been planning this for 2 years. We've met 4 times this year. We met with the teachers, with Vince from Baloney from MOT, the Teachers Association, Human Resources to navigate the move and negotiate everything that needed to be in place, make sure we did it thoughtfully. We've also communicated with parents through a letter and upcoming information. We're going to have an information event with Principal Gallagher in the next month to answer any questions people have, make sure that they understand what it's going to look like and what it's going to be like, and so they have familiarity with the school. And we'll have an ice cream social to welcome the students, as well as join the staffs together before school starts in August. The major benefit of the move from Whiteford to Music is that those students are going to be a part of a community. They are going to have administrative support, they're going to have other teachers there, they're going to have assemblies, they're going to have field trips, they're going to have all the stuff that comes with being a part of a school community. They'll also have typically developing peers available in many classes, out on the playground, in the lunchroom. It's really important. And then of course, we're going to have an increased likelihood they're going to stay with us, which is what we want, right? They come here, they know us, they like us, they're going to stay. All right, next steps. We have been looking at Sanger Unified, which I don't know if you've heard, but they have been developing some really amazing programs and been getting incredible outcomes in the last 10 years. And it's been sustained outcomes. So we're going to go and we're going to do a study. I'm going to be partnering with New Haven District to look at what they're doing, do interviews with staff, observe, see if we can replicate some of their results. They are definitely a best practices district in this state. One of the outcomes that I'm really excited about is that in 7 years, they decreased special education from 12% of their population to 8%. Yeah, and very, very amazing. All right, that's all from my presentation. Did you have any questions for me? Principal Gallagher?
Member Crocker?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. Having read this report before the meeting, it was wonderful. It's full of all the information that we need to have, and that's really great. I think I want to underline a couple things. I think most families have someone in the family that has probably had an IEP, and so I think everyone understands how important it is, and how important it is to get them early, because we can spend $1,000 on a child who is 3 or 4, and will reap many more benefits than spending that $1,000 on a 12-year-old. So I think getting it early and making sure that the kids are included. So I'm excited about the move to music. I think that is definitely long overdue. The children need to learn in an environment that is protected, but it also needs to be general population too. So that's really, really great. I'm looking forward to seeing whether Sanger's going to do it for us. You know, that's exciting, because I know that special ed is part of our budget that we always look at, and we want to make sure that we are doing right by our children, but we also have to ensure that we're spending all of our money as best as we can. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Member Thomas. I mean, you can stay at the point where you
Okay, I wanted to thank you for the very comprehensive report, and it looks like everything is going smoothly on the move of Whiteford to music school, and so that's a great opportunity for the students. As far as the physical space at Whiteford, could you say a few words about, I mean, at music, as I know Whiteford had space for adaptive PE, and the concern was that the whole team be able to stay together. Can you talk a little bit about the space?
Yeah, so we've met with all the staff, we've walked the campus. We have identified, we have 4 classrooms that are comparable size to where they are now. As a matter of fact, they might be a little larger classroom size themselves. The spaces for the related services are a little more cramped, but we believe that they're going to be able to make work. And we're going to be meeting with all of our related service providers next week to work on further brainstorming.
And I know there was a play structure that we put into the Whiteford campus about 5 or 6 years ago. Is that going to move over, or how are you going to have the students play? Are they going to be mixed with their peers?
So what we've done is we really think that outdoor time and that outdoor learning experience is vital for this group of students. And unfortunately, we couldn't move the existing structure without compromising the integrity of it. So we've been supportive. We've already we've already put into place one play structure that will be the play structure part of it, where they get to climb and play.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to add more items to our yard where there's some ground level play, so more students can be engaged. We're also looking at getting swings that are more accommodating to students with different needs. We are going to fence off a large chunk of the field behind the classrooms where they'll be placed, so they also have green spaces to get out and play and learn in. So we're trying to make it as comparable as possible to their current space and updating it at the same time.
Great, thank you.
Member Rodriguez.
Thank you. Excellent report. You guys make a good, like I said earlier, you make a good partnership, a good team. I'm so happy that, you know, you've come to Newark and you teamed up with the move over to music. That's been something we've been talking about for a while, and we didn't know how it was going to happen, and it seems like you are making it happen, and we get feedback from parents and everything, and we know that special ed parents want more answers than other parents, it seems like, and there's always a large concern on whether their child is going to get a good education. And when you have a move like this, then it creates a little bit more anxiety, and you guys seem to be handling very well. So can you share with us how many students will be moving from the preschool over to music from Whiteford?
So in the fall, we anticipate about 32 students. So we have 4 classrooms, and they'll start with 7 to 8 or 9 each.
Right. Okay. And I know you've had meetings with the parents and everything. So thank you for that. And my daughter told me that you came to the special ed ball on Friday.
Oh my goodness, she does such a great job. It was beautiful. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. And I know we're going to get more participation from Newark hopefully next year. But I want to ask you about the age 18 to 22, because we talked about the preschool and the adult. I know we don't have a large class, but can you share with us on that particular part of what we do?
So our post-senior
Yeah.
class, our tall program?
Yeah, the adult class.
So we have, in the fall, we'll have 8 students. We have a teacher and an aide that helps, and they go out into the program and they do community events. They are learning work skills. They are working on life skills on a daily basis. Our teacher is very, very talented, and our students are making progress.
Okay. And then we have different schools or academies that we use for placement. Do you have ongoing conversations with them? Because they are kind of partners in educating our kids. So if you have an academy, do you meet occasionally, or do you do so just when you're getting ready to place a child in that particular school?
So as of yet, I have not. Remember, I am a little new, so I haven't had an opportunity yet, but I will be exploring those options.
Okay. And then the Special Olympics is this Thursday, and I'm just trying to think, is that the one that's going to be at Logan, or I'm not sure.
Oh, yes, it is. I believe it is at Logan.
For the track and field, I think.
Yeah, track
right?
and field.
Okay. Thank you. And one last piece, we have talked to the representative for Congressman Kona, and on seeing if we could put some people together, and I know Superintendent Sentience and I will, ask him directly so that he can talk about federal funding as it involves special education and where we're at, because that's always a big piece for us since we're underfunded. Okay, so hopefully we can make that happen. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for everything you do. We appreciate it, both of you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Member Crocker?
Yeah, I just have one last thought as we were talking. Having gone to some of the Special Olympic items that they had at the high school and seeing how wonderful our high school students are with the kids, I'm wondering whether music has set up a program of mentoring the older children and the general population with the new kids that are coming in. So if you had a big sister, big brother that was right there the first day of school, to have the partner be someone that would be there that they could go to on the play area, it would be a wonderful thing.
I think that's a great idea as well. We've already begun a mentorship program with our current student lead in our inclusion program. So we have 6th graders, 5th graders who will join our 1st grade or kindergarten class to help support them and get active and start to build those relationships with the larger schools.
It's so important to all the students. It's important for the mentors as well as those getting the mentoring. And so it's part of the reason we do inclusion and why it's so important. So I'd be looking forward to making sure that that happens. It'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you for encouraging that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. It's 8:14 now. We'll move on to item 11.1, which is a public hearing. So at 8:14 p.m., I'd like to open the public hearing for the developer fee justification. Are there any speakers or commentary from the public in regards to the public hearing?
I have a question.
Question.
I mean, do we ever approve this or accept it under new business?
I think by law we have to post it as a public hearing and then open it. And so this was posted on the East Bay Times, essentially declaring to the public what we're doing.
Right, but after the opening, after the hearing, is there a time when the board sees it as an agenda item to accept it?
I think we can accept it and approve it right now after I close the public hearing.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you saying it should be under new business as a separate or a second item?
We've had public hearings before, and then we've had it agendized as a separate item for board action. I don't see an item that says board action. Where we can ask questions and discuss it,
Right. Okay.
Superintendent, should it come back to us as an item for acceptance?
I think there's no harm in that. I would recommend that we just open for input at this point, and then we could bring it back as an official action at the next meeting, is my recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay. So any comments from the public for public hearing on 11.1? Hearing none. Close of 11.1, and we'll bring this back on the 16th as an item to take action. Moving on to 12.1, which is public comment on non-agenda items. The first speaker is Ms. Liz Brazil.
Good evening, Newark Unified School Board members and also Superintendent Sanchez. My name is Liz Brazil. I am here before you tonight in reference to the board agenda item that was canceled earlier. Therefore, this is a non-agenda item. This is in reference to the litigation 6G 54956.9 D1. I am a defendant in a litigation case number RG 1473-8281. And I wanted to clarify because I've seen some items in the agenda where it's Brazil versus Newark Unified School District. I want to clarify that I am the defendant in this case and not the plaintiff. Do you concur? Because that's not what's been listed in a couple of agenda items. I am currently being sued by the Newark Unified School District relating to documents requested under the California Public Records Act in 2014, which states the conduct of people's business is a fundamental and necessary right for every person in the state. The same document used by the Alameda County Grand Jury for their report that found Newark Unified School District violated the California Government Code Section 54952.2, the California Government Code Section 54950, which is the Brown Act, and also the Newark Unified School District Bylaws 9200. In addition to the other issues related to the governance of the Newark Unified School District, they were also found that the culture of interference, there's a crisis in leadership, there's non-compliance of its own rules, and most of all, the most important part, since we're now in the budget season, ineffective fiscal oversight. And I just want to remind you, because there's a lawsuit and the trial is on May 11th. It has been almost 3 years since the last time I stood here before you. I want to let you know I'm here for the long haul and determined to see this through. When I first started here, it was President Thomas, and then I believe it went to President Rodriguez or Jan Crocker, and now President Nguyen. But it's been going on for a long time, and I do not wish this to anybody, especially for a resident of Newark for 45 years and with 4 kids. And as you see, my youngest one was just commentated for being in one of the projects of Mr. Liang. The Alameda County Grand Jury found in their investigation a very dysfunctional culture of interference in administrative affairs that poisoned interpersonal relationships and created a crisis in the district leadership. I ask you to keep this in mind when you consider the lawsuit. We now have a different superintendent, which I met for the first time, and the makeup of the board since then have changed considerably. We now have board member Preciado and also President Nguyen. And that's why you haven't heard from me, because I am very pleased and a proud parent and grateful for the education my child is receiving. I have lived here for 45 years, and I'll always be an advocate for children, especially students of Newark School. So I thank you for giving me a few moments, but I want to remind you, this lawsuit's ongoing and it's still continuing. It's changed already, it's time to move on. And again, thank you and good night.
Thank you. Miss Iris Ann Nelson.
Hi, my name's Iris Ann Nelson, and I thank you for listening to me tonight. What I want to do is let you know that I've been a volunteer at Kennedy Elementary this is ending my 7th year. And I had about 6 weeks ago, an incident that I think you should be aware of. I've brought it to the attention of HR. I've tried to bring it to the superintendent's office, but I was at a parent meeting with the science camp people, and the 6th grade teacher, one of the 6th grade teachers came in, and he stomped up to in front of me and he said, "Why do you hate me so much? Why do you hate me?" And I said, "I don't hate you. I don't know what's going on." And he says, "Well, you've been drinking too much of her Kool-Aid." And he pointed to the other 6th grade teacher. And he went on, and I tried to take him outside and calm him down, and I figured I could. He was yelling at me. He told me I was wrong. He told me I was a liar. He threatened to hit me. If you were a man, he said, I'd hit you. And he said that at least twice to me. He said it with children around. We tried to move the conversation away. In hindsight, I should have just gone in and called the police. I didn't have my phone with me. I had left it in the building. And so I really should have called the police. I've taken it to HR. I've taken it to the principal. And I have not had any resolution, any answers in 6 weeks now. And if it's not acceptable for our children to be bullied at school, I don't know why it's acceptable for a teacher to bully and threaten a volunteer. And so I'm just bringing it to your attention tonight. And I appreciate your listening to me. And if you have any further questions, HR does have my file. They've told me 2 weeks ago they were sending me a letter, and nothing has been done. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Superintendent will follow up on that. On to item 13.1, which is the revised course of study, Spanish for Spanish speakers textbook. Is there discussion or motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Okay. Moved by Member Thomas, seconded by Rodriguez. Please vote. Five ayes. 13.2, is there a motion
I'll
to
move to approve.
By Member Preciado, moved. I'll second.
I'll second.
Oh, second by Member Crocker. Please vote. Five ayes. 13.3, course of study for ERWC.
I'll move to approve.
By Member Preciado, second by Member Rodriguez. Member Rodriguez, did you have a comment on this, or was it misclick? Okay. Please vote. Five ayes. 13.4, first draft of the LCAP plan. Ms. Salinas.
Good evening. This evening, Director Janet Hanley and I come forward with a draft of the 2017-2018 LCAP. After tonight's Board of Education meeting, after the public and you all have an opportunity to continue to engage with this draft, we will return back. We're continuing to meet with stakeholders. We have a meeting with the Alameda County Office of Education to receive their review and input next week. And also, we will have a final meeting with our own LCAP Advisory Committee. So after all of that happens, we get some input and some more discussion this evening. We actually will return back on June 6th with a revised, updated draft for a public hearing. And then finally, we'll bring back the final for the approval along with the budget at the last meeting in June. I want to share that this has been, I think, an ongoing process and a growing process. It's funny, being in educational services, we speak to surrounding districts, and everyone seems to do it a little differently, but I think the end result is that we have input from our parents, that we have our public hearings, and that we're able to look at a draft. I know that some of the lessons learned for this year was that there was a request to look at drafts that had budgets and funding tied to it. So we attempted to bring you that with this draft, but also with the caveat that this is not the final. We still have the May revise that's coming up, and so I kind of wanted to put the setting and put the context out there. But I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Hanley, and as we go through the PowerPoint, and then we'll be available for questions.
So tonight I will be presenting to you some of the big ideas of what is going to be in the LCAP under the actions and services coming forward for the 17-18 school year. Okay, so under Goal 1, which is student achievement, some of the big ideas that we have going on is that we'll be contracting with Silicon Valley Math Project Initiative, and with that group, they will be doing a lot of professional development for us. We will have a contract with them, and we'll send teachers to some trainings throughout the year. In addition, we'll be looking at also getting some coaching from the initiative, and that would come into our district and work with our teachers directly. The next big idea is an idea that actually has been requested the last 2 years in the LCAP, and that is from the parents that they want more resources and training. And in particular in math. They're a little frustrated with being able to help their child with homework, and so one of the ideas that we had was to create a Symbaloo and have a lot of links and resources on the district website on the Symbaloo. And Amy, our new director of teaching and learning, has already gotten started on it, and it's looking pretty good. And what will happen is when they go into the website and they click on the different buttons, one of the resources will be able to follow homework step by step for the Engage New York math. and it'll have different links like to Khan Academy, things like that. Next, we're going to be doing, we'll continue with our universal math assessments that we started this year for K-6. And we will also be, and this was a parent idea, is that we would do an after-school math center district-wide. So we're looking at putting at 2 different locations in the district, a drop-in center, so parents can bring their students in and they can get help with math. We'll have it staffed with a certificated teacher, and then we'll get a couple high school students. We'll also be able to help the kids so that they can go around and work with the kids and give them individual attention. We're looking at continuing the Math Academy. It hasn't gotten off the ground. We're in the planning stages, and we're moving forward with it, and it's looking wonderful, and we're looking at being able to replicate it next year. We're looking at, we had 2 teacher TOSAs this year that worked on technology. What we're going to do is, they were wonderful and helped with some implementation on technology, but we're going to shift, so those 2 positions will go away, and we'll be posting or have posted for a position for a TOSA that will really work with assessment and analysis and working with departments, teachers, administrators in reading and analyzing data so that it can help inform instruction on a very in real time, so that they be able to look at the data and immediately be able to come up with good action steps moving forward. We're also continuing RTI, and when Jennifer was doing her presentation, she has talked about bringing in Time for Teach, I think it was, which would help support the RTI model. And in a few minutes, RTI is there's a behavior one and an academic one, and in a couple of slides forward, we'll be talking a little bit more about the behavioral RTI, which special ed is also helping support that. And last but not least, just under the action steps of math, is that we will continue with the after-school program that we've been doing at the 3 Title I SES schools. And that was mandated this year, that we do it as a set-aside. We've had great results, and parents are very positive about the results and have been appreciative of what we've done. So we'll be moving forward with that action next year as an after-school program. So we'll continue it. Okay. Moving forward, in Goal 1, we also talk about language arts. We'll continue with our iReady online instruction, we'll continue with the iReady assessments. What we're adding in this year is we did a pilot to see how the students would progress with a differentiated online program. So after they take their iReady assessment, then the program is very dynamic, and it creates a lesson sequence for the students, and based on how they perform, whether or not it gets easier, harder, or repeats. And so this will allow the students, K-6, throughout the district to get some more support in the language arts area. We are wanting next year to be able to make sure that we have consistency throughout the district in terms of how we're scoring on different assessments, such as our writing prompts, and wanting to make sure that we have consistent look on how we're grading, so that what is an A in one school is the same in another school. So we're looking at trying to get some more consistency, and that's really a matter of just pulling teachers together and having some conversations to standardize and making sure that the rigor is there. And last thing we'll be working on next summer, we're doing a portion I think this summer, but next summer we'll use the grant money to do a bridge program for our rising students into 9th grade, and they'll be attending a summer program, and it will be paid for by grant money that was approved, I think back in December, it went forward to the board. So that program will be coming forward as well in our next LCAP. In terms of literacy in the content area, what you're going to see is that this year in GSS, there was a committee, and in the annual update, we talk about the fact that there was with Bayside, there's been an ongoing relationship. They've come in and have provided us guidance and helped led us in discussions. And one of it talks about the pathways that we'll be doing for science. I think they've identified the pathways. So what we will be putting in the LCAP is money for the purchase of some materials as we go forward. This is kind of an exciting one, the next one, and that is STEAM activities. So each of the schools are getting a certain dollar allocation so they can provide enrichment after school for our students with STEAM activities. I think all the sites are pretty excited to create and develop a program at their school site. And last but not least, we do understand and recognize that we've got to keep doing textbook adoption so that our books stay current. And we've gotten away from a cycle. At one time, the state was very regimented, and with all the changes and shifts in the state in the last 5 years, the adoption cycle hasn't been as stringently followed. And so anyway, in the district, what we want to do is create a cycle and also figure out how to start saving money, because the textbook adoptions are very expensive. Okay, and then underserved students, student achievement, that's the last section in Goal 1. And on this one, we are looking at providing all the staff training on the ELD standards that have come into play. Some sites have done some pieces with the new ELD standards, but we want to consistently get it throughout the district. We have 2 schools that are that have been getting trained on accelerated English. One is did their first year of implementation this year. Another school is in their second year of implementation, and what the overall goal had been would be to provide 3 years of training and support with them as they integrate that program. So we're kind of finishing up a project that had started a few years ago. The next item I had referred to, the Time to Teach, that's for special ed, and it is a behavior management program, and it will align also well with our PBS and our RTI model for behavior. We are looking at implementing Sunday, which is a language arts program for the special ed students, K-6. It's been research-based and has been a very successful program. Training is getting started in June for this program. And we talked about the 2 drop-in math centers for the math to support the students. Okay, Goal 2. In looking at what changes we have for student engagement, we're going to continue with PBIS. It has been growing and moving along. We will next year be bringing in another school to the trainings, which is their planning year. And we'll have, all but 2 of our schools will have started some level of PBIS by next year. And that's our behavior management system. We have partnered with county health services to also help fund positions and help oversee the implementation of PBIS and additional health services. And we continue to provide the mental health services at some of our school sites in partnership with the county. Okay, parent involvement. So we are.
I think you skipped one.
Oh, did I?
3. Back one.
Oh, basic services, sorry. Okay, this slide I put in here just so that you do know and understand there is a Goal 3, but we don't really have any changes. This is really what we call our Williams one. And so what we're going to do is continue providing textbooks, trying to maintain our staff so that we do have the fit reports and that we do well on them, and continue to make sure that we're putting our staff in the appropriate credentialed class, the classrooms with the appropriate credential, okay? So this one is just kind of we're continuing to do our basic services. And parent involvement. So one of the things we tried this year is that the concern that had come up from a parent survey was the communication for our Spanish-speaking parents at our school offices and with our teachers. So we had put it in the LCAP, and every site was to get a 2-hour person and get a translator on their site. That didn't work so well. And the reason for that is having a hard time getting the staff hired and getting somebody consistently there. So next year we're going to do it a little different, and we're going to hire a person full-time, and then that person will do a combination of a rotation basis at the sites or on call. So we thought by hiring a full-time person we would get more consistency, and then that way we could access the translations at the sites and manage that a little better, see if that works. Next thing we're doing is offering multiple trainings, both in Spanish and English. We've been doing some trainings, I think, this year, but typically we do duo translation. And next year what we're hoping to do is add a lot more parent trainings and doing 2. So one will be in Spanish and one will be in English. We are looking at providing the district the Symbaloo, and that's really a nice little grid that goes on the district website, and you click on different buttons on that, and that gives you the resources. So we'll do a Symbaloo to give electronic resources to parents and students for math. And last but not least, we'll be providing and increasing participation in parent workshops with our parent partners. They've done a phenomenal job, and when you look at the hours of volunteer that they get and the impact they've made, they've really done a tremendous job. And the goal is to really continue and maintain that, okay? And our last goal in the LCAP is the advanced placement course. And so again, we are going to be continuing to work on increasing the level of participation of students in advanced placement, along with making sure that kids take the test and pass the test. So there's 3 parts to that goal, and that is getting more kids in AP, and they are continuing to have meetings and advocate with the students and doing one-on-ones. They do a wide variety of activities to get the underrepresented student into the APs, and then like we said, to get them to take the test, and they need to pass a test with a 3 or higher, and so work on our passing rate as well. And they also are continuing to have the 10th and 11th graders take the PSAT, and it is supported by the district and the school. Okay, so with that, those are the big ideas and the changes that are coming in the LCAP. So this slide really kind of talks about the timeline and where we're at. We did some updates with this. We did with the first draft, we did meet in January 12th as originally planned, but it's taken a little bit longer to get the draft to the board because the board had requested that we do it with the budget numbers. And so we're bringing you a draft, and as Mrs. Salinas had mentioned, the downside to it is some people are thinking that that's the final, and I keep telling them, no, we're going to come back with more suggestions, and we'll come back with revisions based on what you have. So what you see in the blue section are the different groups that do give input into the LCAP, and we still have that input to take. And so when we come back with the next round, it will be with the input from our student surveys, our school site councils, our ELACs and our DLACs. We're right now in the process of getting all that information. So we will be making changes to this. This is not a final draft. And in addition to that, after we do get all that input, then we'll be taking it to the board first for the public hearing, and then we'll go for approval. And after that, of course, it goes to the county office for approval. So that's our overall timeline. In another slide, I'll get to the specific dates, but before we get to that, this kind of lists all the different people that we are talking to and that will have a part or a voice in the LCAP. So the next time when we come, these voices will be heard. And that is, like I mentioned, student surveys, school site councils, DLAC, LCAP advisory will have one more meeting. The governor will have the revised budget, and so that will really play a part in what these numbers are showing right now for the budget. That will make a big difference. And also our district budget resources could adjust and change based on decisions made by you. So that a lot of changes will still be coming forward. In terms of formal dates of when different things are happening, on May 8th, we go to the county office and they will take a look at our draft and give us feedback on the draft. Then on June 6th, we will have the public hearing along with the budget at the same time. June 27th, we'll be doing the budget and the LCAP together as Ed Code states, and then we go to ACOE for approval. Okay? So do you have any questions, comments that you would like to make regarding the rough draft?
We do. We'll start with Member Crocker.
Yeah. Just thinking about the way the LCAP is presented. Is this your formula, or is this something from the state? Do they have a template for you?
Oh, I forgot to mention that. Yes, the state did come out with a new template. They're very strict on how that template is done, with absolutely zero, other than we can add color on a chart. That's about the only thing they will let us do, not even change a font. But so with that draft, what you saw, and I did want to bring that up, so thanks for asking. Well, what you saw is the data is very tiny on our charts, and we have been working with DTS for the last few weeks trying to figure out how we're going to get that adjusted. And there's even discussion if we leave DTS and go back to the state template. But it is very regimented, and we do need to continue to work with DTS to see if we can get those numbers and that font a little bit more legible. I'm getting old, And, you know, at first I looked at it and it's like, I can't even read it. And then put my glasses on and realized that if I look really close, I can. But it does need to be adjusted. So I recognize that and we will work on that.
Okay,
And
thank you. Because it does make a difference. If parents want to drill down and see something, they have to be able to find it and say it. In the past, it's been a real problem, so.
Right, and bring a magnifying glass right now. But we are working on that with DTS. Okay?
Member Preciado?
So first of all, I want to say thank you for taking the time to organizing the presentation in a real clear manner, because I think it really does lay out the goals in a way that's easily understandable, and you can see the measurable outcomes. So I appreciate that. I'll say it's 10 times better than I've seen before in terms of being really accessible and then the content. So appreciate that. I had a question in terms of the math center. Do you have the locations right now, or is that still being worked out for the 2 sites? You mentioned that there may be 2 sites. Is that something like that's just getting input from the parents, or do you guys have a?
You know what, it hasn't gotten to the level of detail. We really have just penciled out numbers for right now. But the parents, when they did suggest it, I think they mentioned 2 different sites.
Okay.
And we thought that was a great idea because in that way for transportation.
Mm-hmm. No, so that's amazing. I just wanted to say, it's like, as we implement that, it'd be great for to make sure parents knew about that, because that's amazing. That's a really important add-on to our district, and so that people can see that there's this math resource. The other piece I wanted to say, I think was really great, was the summer bridge program for incoming freshmen. I know we discussed that there is a difficult sometimes transition from 8th grade to 9th grade in light of it's a different campus, there's a new environment, it's just different, right? So I think that's really great. So those are the 2 kind of points that I wanted to make that I really am on board with in terms of the Math Center and the summer bridge program. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so, one clarification, this is a 3-year cycle that we're adopting for LCAP, right, with single-year revisions moving forward?
Yes, and it used to be, it's always been a 3-year cycle, but this cycle is different because what the state did come out with is it was a rolling 3 years. So when we bring this one, then the next year we add on 3 more years. What is different, and you do bring up a good point, is that this is 3 years. So then next year it'll just be 2 years, and then the next year it'll be a year, and then it starts all over again. And that's new and different, because we've always just done a rolling at this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And then, so as you finalize your final draft for June, I think one of the things we need to be cognizant of is the conversation we had earlier today in the study session in regards to the district's budget. I like a lot of the actions here, but I also see that a lot of these actions cost money. And so just that awareness as far as, okay, how does this jive? How does it fit in with the overall budgetary constraints and plans moving forward, so that we don't put ourselves in a position where, something can't be funded or whatnot.
And if I could add, we will be definitely aware of it. I think with a lot of these funding sources, because they're specifically triggered due to an unduplicated student, or some of them, even though they appear to not have strings, they kind of do have strings, but we'll be aware of that versus maybe some of the more general fund lottery money, which we definitely have to look at that with a different lens.
Okay. Ms. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a lot of work went into this and a lot of planning, and I'm grateful that you have taken the input of the parents and the other stakeholders and in designing it. Which makes me want to echo Member Wynn's comments that we're adding things. We're adding summer bridge programs. We're adding, we're taking away 2 TOSAs, but having 1 come back. So the big picture of how much this is going to cost is kind of lost. The other thing that I noticed, and mine's getting dog-eared because when I read these things, I have questions, and a meeting like this is not the best way to be able to get those questions answered or have a discussion with the board. And I don't know if it would be appropriate if my board colleagues would like to have a workshop, a couple-hour workshop, or we can informally, ask questions. So we've done a lot of actions, and in some cases we've spent money, and others we haven't. How are you measuring the efficacy of the things you've done. When we do professional development and we can't get guest teachers in, how many, I mean, have you met your goal? What's the numeric measure of all these activities that will eventually feed into the AMAOs, that we really, are going to be measured on by the state? So, I think there's a lot of questions about goals and measurable measures, and especially with goal number 5, we say that, and that goal, and I mentioned it in the workshop the other day, that we want to get unduplicated students in there, but we're not measuring and reporting to us or to the community any impact or numbers related to that. So, I mean, I think a workshop would be helpful, so maybe we can give our input and tighten up some of those measures so that we see from this year to next if we are making progress in the activities or just having activities that don't result, in progress. Thank you.
That's what my hope for next year also, that as we start to roll out, we start to do more, not necessarily a full-blown workshop, but updates as to how we're doing. I think it was really powerful to hear from Ms. Willis's perspective, having being new to Newark and kind of assessing the state of the state. She knew she had to do some quick addresses in terms of some liabilities or training that had to happen, but then it's looking at those goals and what gets measured gets done, right? So I think some of our work for next year is actually planning out a school year calendar, so where we'll come back to report on LCAP updates of implementation. Not necessarily bring you back the whole thing, but saying here we're gonna focus in on the summer math academy and what that planning is what's taking place there. I think the California School Dashboard is going to be really crucial in this work to really show if we're making our percentage targets. In June, our principals are currently working on their site plans right now. So in their site plans, they've been working with Janet also to actually set their goals in accordance to what the California School Dashboard is saying for each of these schools. So we're going to hopefully move a lot of our work more towards, are we measuring what our targets are, and then are we implementing and making our goals? So all of that is to say that I'm hoping to have more communication as we go throughout the school year instead of waiting till the late spring to say, oh, the LCAP's back and let's go through this process again. That's some of my hope and planning for next year.
Okay, thank you very much. On to item 13.5, change order 1, bid package 2. Any discussions or move to approve?
Is it 13.5?
13.5, yes.
I do have an amendment, if I may.
Thank you.
It's a simple amendment, but it should read, in the background, it should read 5/3/2016, not 5/7/2016.
So is it May 4th or May 3rd?
May 3rd.
May 3rd, because on the document itself, the resolution 2049, it says
Is that correct, Patty?
May 4th.
So, yeah, they say it should be 5/3/2016.
2016 or 2017?
2016 is what's listed here. Yes, that's correct. That's the only amendment.
Okay, so May 3rd. We just changed the day on the background information.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion, motion to approve.
I move we approve.
Moved by Member Thomas. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Crocker. Please vote. Five ayes. Thank you. Item 13.6, which is notice of completion for the HVAC upgrades. Is there a discussion or move to approve?
Move to approve.
Moved by Member Rodriguez. Is there a second? Second. Second by Member Preciado. Please vote. Five ayes. Thank you. 13.7, approval of requirements for pre-qualification of bidders for construction contracts. Discussion or move to approve?
I move to approve.
By Member Thomas. Is there a second? Second by Member Rodriguez. Please vote. Five ayes. Thank you. 13.8 donations, summary of donations. Is there a move to approve?
So moved.
By Member Crocker, second by Member Preciado. Please vote. Five ayes. Summary, $1,500 to Newark Memorial High School. The donor is Playing at Learning for the robotics team. A donation of $500 to Newark Memorial High School for Four Leaf Incorporated for athletics, specifically for baseball. Donation of $500 to Newark Memorial High School from DevCon Construction Incorporated for baseball. A donation of $200 to Newark Junior High School from Gurkos LLC, trustee of PG&E Corporation. The purpose is the principal site donation. A donation of $500 to Newark Memorial High School from Consolidated Engineering Laboratories and for baseball as well. Thank you very much for our contributors. On to item 13.9. This is an informational discussion, Superintendent.
Yes, I do have our partners here from Washington Hospital. If I could get them to step to the podium and give us a little description. If you guys are ready. Oh, go ahead, Coach. Thank you. I didn't see you there. I thought you were a student.
Oh, well, that's nice. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to share with you a bit of history, and I know that you have seen some of this before, but we found ourselves in a situation during the fall football season where we are obligated by law to have a certified athletic trainer present at all of our football games. And the history behind this is that we have been provided for many years, at least 15 years that I know of, free services from a local physical therapy company who has donated an athletic trainer to our school that we shared with 2 other schools in Fremont. They provided services at our football games, and they also came to our campus every Wednesday to monitor, supervise, and treat our students, but it was just once a week. It was free, and so that's what we went with, and we had been continuing to be good partners with them. Late in the fall, like many things, all good things must come to an end, and when one door closes, another one opens, and they are no longer able to maintain cost of having athletic trainers in their physical therapy office. This wasn't a good business decision for them. So we got into a bind where, fall is football season, and looking at the fact that we had no athletic trainer to be there for us. I made contact with Mike Rogers and his team of sports medicine doctors from Washington Hospital, and they helped us. They got us through football season. They have now introduced a partnership, an opportunity to partner with them moving forward in the future. And this is something that we have kind of been behind the times on. I know that member Thomas knows that there's a huge push from the CIF to have certified athletic trainers present. I can tell you that the common practice is one that needs much improvement. I can tell you that we currently have no athletic trainers on our campus. They got us through football season. Right now our kids are relying on the coaches' training to monitor their return to play. They are very minimally being monitored on their return to the classroom, which has been a huge push from the CIF. And so there's a huge, huge need for this partnership with Washington Hospital. I'm going to have Mike and his team of doctors speak to you about the specifics of the opportunity that we have. But I also wanted to share with you just the background of where this has been and where it's going, and the opportunity that we have, and some of the very important decisions that are made by our coaches and our staff, and in some of the situations that our families are forced to be in because we do not provide services. And I'm going to let Mike do some talking about the specifics of the program, and we're happy to answer any questions. I also did want to add, though, that although this is partnership with Washington Hospital, they have partnerships with Kaiser doctors, which would maximize the opportunity for our students to be able to be treated and to be seen. And I'm going to introduce, this is Mike Rogers from Washington Hospital's team of doctors.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for the opportunity to come and present this evening. Again, my name is Mike Rogers. I manage the sports medicine program for Washington Hospital. I'm also a certified athletic trainer by trade myself. Washington Hospital being a district hospital, we're community-based, owned by the community, and we're always looking at ways to help fill needs in healthcare in the district. And one of the big needs that we've identified is that the 880 corridor in this area, almost none of the high schools have certified athletic trainer. James Logan does, being a large school, and then some of the private schools. So we've been trying to find ways that we can kind of work with the schools and try to help fill this void. We are working with a few schools in Fremont that we've worked with for several years, been very well received by the school, especially the parents, the coaches, the athletes. Is one of those things where they've told us we don't know how we ever got by before. Once they have it and they realized what they were missing all along because it was falling on the coaches to try to figure out what's wrong with an athlete. I'll tell you, with the 3 schools we work with, we see over 5,000 visits in the training room every year. So that's about, you did the math, it's about 1,700 per school. And so if we're seeing 1,700 at those schools, most likely the kids at Newark are being seen either nowhere or trying to find their way through. Or a lot of times what common practice when there aren't certified athletic trainers around is go sit on the sideline and put some ice on your ankle and wait for a while and hopefully it gets better. By having an athletic trainer on site, now that injury can be looked at, diagnosed, possibly treated and rehabbed right at the school, getting them back in their sport, not only quickly but safely, so they don't re-injure it and make it worse. So basically what we're trying to do to help fill this void is come up with a 3-year proposal. I already heard a couple different things tonight about budgets and that sort of thing. So the hospital is committed to helping phase in this so that it's something that can be budgeted over time. And what we're proposing is the first year for Newark Unified just to pay 25% of the cost. And then the second year, 50%, and then the third year, 75%, and the hospital would still continue to cover 25% of that. And we're looking at this to be something that's more long-term sustainable for us. As Rachel mentioned, there was another provider that was providing it for free, although it was 1 day a week, so hopefully everybody gets hurt on Wednesday when the trainer's there, otherwise there's no one to be there. So this would be hopefully long-term sustainable, that we could still be able to commit some money to it, and also then the board or the school district could have the opportunity to have a trainer at a lower cost than if you were providing it on your own. And plus it would give the entire resources of our sports medicine program at the disposal. As Rachel mentioned, we also have a partnership with Kaiser. So not only is our program streamline referrals into our sports medicine doctors so that they can get looked at properly and get diagnosed and treated quickly, because sometimes the season's only a couple months long. If it takes you 3 weeks just to get into your doctor, you've missed half your season almost. So this would be a streamlined referral where we get same day or next day referrals into our system. But we also have a partnership with Kaiser where our athletic trainers can contact the physical medicine department at Kaiser and they can get them in same day or next day as well. So we don't just dump them into that system and say, go figure it out. So it's a really good partnership. It's been working really well for us. I think Rachel said that you guys have the handouts, I think, with the proposed 3 years on there that shows the numbers in there for you. Again, it's a 25, 50, 75 over a 3-year period. And then what that gives you is a certified athletic trainer at the school every day, 26 hours a week. So that would allow them to be there every day after school for practices. They would flex their time as needed to try to cover games, because sometimes during football season, there's the Friday night games that last longer, or basketball season, there's games that go into the night a couple nights a week. So they would try to flex that out, that time, to cover as many events as possible. But the key thing is being there every night after school, or every day after school, because statistics from the National Athletic Trainers Association shows that 62% of injuries occur at practice. So a lot of times we look at, well, let's just have someone there for games. But 62% of the injuries are happening during practice. So someone that's there that knows what to do and take care of that person, keep you from calling 911 for something that's really not that serious, that sort of thing, and someone that really knows how to take charge and what to have happen. Make sure that there's emergency action plans in place, and a certified athletic trainer helps with all of that. Another key component is concussion management. There's a lot of big hot button topics with concussions in the NFL and the movie with Will Smith and all that. So there is a law that went into effect a couple years ago in California that someone that sustained a concussion has to be monitored by a professional for a minimum of 7 days and have a progressive recovery and introduction back into the sport. If there's no athletic trainer that's around on a daily basis who's monitoring that return to play and also returning to learning. So that's another component of the concussion management. It's not just the athletics, but it's also in the classroom. After a concussion, sometimes there's some issues with learning and testing and that sort of thing as people recover from a concussion or something like that. So they can help with the return to learn as well as the return to play and have that progressive system. The other piece that we have for concussion management is we have some brand new state-of-the-art technology called iSync. And these are essentially virtual reality goggles that are hooked to a computer, and it will identify a concussion in less than 60 seconds. It's technology that was developed at Stanford, and I would probably say that this area is the only high schools that are using this technology. We've got 2 of them, one at our physical therapy clinic, and we've got one at one of our physicians' offices. And our physicians at home football games, they come on the sideline for the varsity game, and they bring that equipment with them, and they use that. We had it actually this past football season. We were using that. So that's another piece of equipment that we can help and share to be part of this program. So I don't want to just talk on and on. I'd be happy to answer questions. And also Dr. Russell Nord, he's the medical director for our sports medicine program. He can say a few words too. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
I'd like to hear a little bit of the doctor's perspective of, what are you seeing on the other end, and what are the trends that you're noticing with students in these type of experiences that they're having?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first off, I think Rachel and Mike gave a great overview, and I want to thank everyone here for having us tonight. I also want to thank the hospital for its support of the program. And really, I'm here to speak as a public health advocate, someone taking care of patients, seeing what goes on. And to introduce the answer to your question, I think I'd go back to the genesis of this program 6-7 years ago. I was starting to see some kids in my office from schools, local high schools, and they had an injury, and it wasn't clear if it was serious or not, and they were trying to play through it. And it turns out they did have something more serious in their knee, and it's something that would have been better recognized early before more damage was done. And I was wondering to myself quietly why the trainer didn't pick up on this and pull the player aside. And after I dug into things, I realized that it's because the schools in this area really didn't have athletic trainers. Where I grew up, it was much the norm for any high school of size to have that sort of service. And so this program's something that's evolved over the 6-7 years, and I think it's well positioned now, and it's grown and it's mature, and it really is able to provide service to all the athletes, whether or not they're Kaiser or non-Kaiser, which is really important. We want to be able to serve every student. So what I've noticed is over the years is that there are kind of two types of injuries, if we're going to classify them in sports medicine. There's the acute injury and the overuse injury. And a lot of what we think about are the acute injuries, where someone's walking around playing fine 1 minute, then something happens, they twist, they get hit, and they're injured the next minute. Those are usually easier to spot. The overuse injuries are things that occur over time, often from a repetitive action. And those are actually becoming more and more common in athletics, especially youth athletics, as we're seeing increased specialization in sports at an even younger age. Probably the most clear example of this is baseball pitching. Youngsters start very early. Despite efforts in the public health realm to monitor pitch counts and sometimes even pitch types, it's difficult to do that, especially with children sometimes playing in multiple leagues and whatnot. And over time, these repetitive activities will kind of insidiously cause discomfort, but it doesn't come in a moment, and they can be overlooked, and players try to work through it rather than rest it. It's not obvious how this should be done. And we're seeing this at the high school level, we're seeing it at the youth level. It's really pervasive as these kids get into sports earlier. So one of the things that a trainer can do is not only identify an injury as it occurs and decide whether it's just a little bump or something that should be taken more seriously, but also look out for patterns of overuse injuries in a school or a program, and dive deeper into the specifics of a training regimen that might be underlying that, and try to prevent things before they occur. So I think when I look back at what I've noticed, it's really that kind of dichotomy of injury types and the importance of acknowledging both of them and preventing on one end and recognizing on both ends and then treating when needed. I think a program like this would be very useful in those regards. And like Rachel and Michael both said, one of the most important things we're here tonight to do is answer any questions. So please don't hesitate. Thank you again for your time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any
Highlight so that you are aware. Our athletic department and the number of students that would be benefiting from this program, we have 1,103 students at the high school that participate in athletics if we count them in multiple sports. And so the opportunity for them to be seen and supervised by an athletic trainer is a tremendous opportunity benefit for our families in general. And I know that the budget issues that we're facing now are a real concern. But I also want to point out that if we break it down to the cost per student, we're talking about just over $16 per student for this program to happen. And I think that that's a small price to pay in investing in the health and safety of our students, especially when there's legal obligation that's connected to it. And so if there's any questions for myself or Dr. or Mike, would be happy to.
I think you have questions coming, so.
Okay, Member Thomas?
Yes, Rachel, I have a question for you regarding the overuse injuries and the fact that we have a lot of club sports. So do a lot of our students play club sports either before or after their regular sport? And is there anything that we are doing to ensure that they're made aware of and maybe their parents warned about the repetitive use injuries that the doctor mentioned we're starting to see, especially with pitching and things like that? Are you doing anything to encourage kids to be in multiple sports as opposed to club sports followed by the high school sports?
Yeah, well, to answer your first question, yes, our students do participate in youth sports, club teams, those things, in addition to what we do. And kind of what the doctor mentioned is that it's hard for us to monitor what they're doing when they're away from us. So we, particularly in baseball, the CIF and NCS has just adopted pitch count rule, and so we are now required to record the number of pitches being thrown by baseball pitchers. And so we can do our small part. I think it's out there. Parents do understand. Just the increase in Tommy John surgeries for young pre-high school students has greatly increased. We, however, are governed by the CIF and NCS rules for pitch count and things like that. So yes, we do follow those rules. However, like the doctor is mentioning, it is really hard to monitor what kids do when they're away from us and what they do on the weekends.
Another question. You mentioned there's a law that we have to have a certified trainer. From what I learned at CIF, there is no certification in California, no certification requirement in the state of California. Governor Brown has vetoed legislation or threatened to veto legislation. And so how does that square with a law that says we're required to have a certificated or certified athletic trainer at football games?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there's a difference. There is certification for athletic trainers. It's a national certification.
Right.
California is the only state that doesn't license athletic trainers. So they don't have like the state doesn't do anything to license them. So anybody in this room can say they're a certified, or say they're an athletic trainer in California, and there's nothing preventing it. But there is a national certification for athletic training. The laws say that you have to have medical coverage for a football game. It doesn't necessarily have to be a certified athletic trainer. Certified athletic trainer is just the best professional to use for that. If you think of marrying an EMT with a physical therapist, that's going to give you an athletic trainer. That's kind of the best description.
For schools that don't have an athletic trainer at football games, who does that function or fulfills that law?
Well, I can answer that question for you. So we have to have somebody or the games don't happen. So we have to pay independently, and the cost associated with that, I was speaking with the commissioner of the NVAL this afternoon, and he had mentioned to me that the cost that he is paying for a certified athletic trainer to be at league events is upwards of $300 per day. And so we have to, which is what we had to do during football season this year, is to partner with Washington Hospital and pay individually game prices. The trainer that they have on staff at Logan, they're paying more than $52,000 a year for, and it's for a fraction of the services that we have the opportunity to get.
So the law says it has to be a certified person, like
medical personnel.
Huh?
Yeah.
Has to be a
It could be a
nationally
doctor, it could be a-
certificated, certified.
I believe they allow EMTs. I think NCS allows an EMT to also be a game, so like an ambulance, something like that. But really, they don't have the decision-making really capability of orthopedic type stuff. They're great if you need to start an airway.
Yeah, because this is the first I've heard of it, and I've been at a lot of CIF meetings where it's been discussed, and I didn't know it was a law or a requirement like that.
Yeah, you're required to have medical coverage for a home football game.
Right.
So it could be a doctor on the sideline, it can be a EMT, it can be a certified athletic trainer. You just have to have, home team has to provide medical coverage.
And we can do it on a game-by-game basis. I think that's what you did last year, right? You just paid the daily rate of $300 per, was like 6 home games or whatnot, or?
Well, that's 6 varsity home games.
Right then.
So there's 3 levels of football, so 3 times 6 times 300.
Okay. Member Crocker?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. I'm delighted that we've got this particular group that's going to be able to work with us. I see there's a couple areas there where we need things. Number one, we need parent training. My husband was involved in coaching for very many years, and sometimes the people that were coaching in the club sports were doing terrible things, and mainly because they didn't know. They thought they were doing the right thing because they saw professional athletes doing it, and so they want a 5-year-old to do the same thing. And so I'm wondering whether there's any piece that we can do in terms of education for our parents. I personally would not allow my kids to go and do anything that was contact at all until they were in high school, because there's control in terms of the quality of the coaching. That's not particularly true for other things. So we're getting kids coming in that have already been stressed in parts of their bodies that should not be stressed before they start the high school. So I think it needs to be more than just the high school. We need to do it as a community in terms of making stuff available for the parents.
I couldn't agree more. We saw that need as well, and just last year started a sports medicine lecture series. Hit a number of topics as the year went through, and we look to continue that in the future. And I think one of the benefits of this program is that you get a dialogue going and you get the word out there, and it's easier to leverage the rest of the offerings of the Washington Sports Medicine Program once there's a trainer around and there's a buzz and there's a bit of more consciousness about sports medicine. In the immediate, I'd be more than happy to swing by at a time that works for you and give a lecture on sports prevention to parents, athletes, whoever it might be. That would certainly be useful, because to Rachel's point, it's impossible to control what these thousands of individuals are doing in all their free time each day of the week, but by educating we can start to start to improve the situation, no question.
Yeah, as a grandparent whose granddaughter got a concussion in water polo, I'm curious, what you were saying that you had the machine that you could identify. What is that called?
Oh, it's called an iSync machine, and
iSync,
EYESYNC, and it's concussions are very complicated. There's probably no structure in the known universe more complicated than the human brain, and any injury to it is complicated in our understanding of it. And our appreciation of what a concussion is and how best to manage it has evolved year by year even. The pace is accelerated, but each year we get a more refined understanding of what this is and what we should do about it and what the risks of them are. So on that note, we don't have it all figured out as a medical community. It's a moving target. And this is an excellent tool in identifying some of the major subsets of concussion that involve disturbances in the visual field and the movement of the eyes, which are very closely associated with the brain. And so you can pick up on a large subset of concussions in this manner. Concussions can actually be fairly difficult to identify in some cases. Other cases are quite clear. But it can be fairly subtle, it can be opaque. And this is a very useful tool in that armamentarium.
I guess my third piece, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the perfect time to implement something like that is during our seasonal athletic orientations, where we have each season of sport come in and have a parent meeting and sport-specific meetings, and it would be the perfect place to educate our parents and have the doctors or the athletic trainer be able to speak to that, and this is the perfect place for them to be exposed to those types of things.
Is there a website that would be this kind of information so that, for example, if your child got hit with a baseball and you went home and you went through the training process, but having access to something that, Kaiser, I've been a Kaiser member for a long time, and I can call them any time of the day or night, and they will give me information, like someone that knows what it is, and we can talk it through. So I think that would be a wonderful kind of piece that could work. My third point has to do with the savings. I was hoping that we could pay for this with the savings that we had on our insurance. Did anybody find anything out about that?
I'm still waiting to hear back. Okay. I'm investigating that still.
Because I would think liability-wise, it's like homeowners. If you have someone that makes a buzzing noise when someone breaks in your house, you get less cost in your insurance. And I should think that this would definitely be something the liability insurance should do. Thank you very much.
And also the cost of the medical supplies, the training supplies. That's an additional cost that the Athletic Booster Club has agreed to pay for.
Good.
Member Rodriguez?
Thank you for coming and giving us the information and making a presentation. And I had a chance to meet you at the assembly, and I was thankful that you were able to provide services to us at a minimal cost, but I knew at some point we would have to, come to this where we would have to come up with a contract. And again, the, reduced cost initially, and then, as you progress, I had your management piece would be basically to be at the games, like at the football games. How do you do during practice? Are you, because you talked about 26 hours, does that mean you're there in the afternoon when the kids practice?
Exactly. They'd be there every day after school when practices start. And they'd be there a little bit before, so if anybody needed to be taped or wrapped before they went to practice, if maybe they'd had an injury and they'd recovered from it, but they're going to get some sort of preventative taping or wrapping, they would do that before they go out to practice, and then they'd be there in case anybody hurts, or there might be some athletes that aren't able to practice because they've got some sort of injury that they're rehabbing, and the athletic trainer then would work with them during the day and try to get them ready so that they could go out there, and then they would run them through progressive drills to gradually implement them back into going into the sport. So they would be there every day, and then, like I said, they would just flex those 26 hours to try to figure out, I might have to leave at 5:30 this day because I'm going to be here a little later the next day or whatever, and they would just flex those hours to try to cover as many practices and events as they could.
We've had a lot of interest from our young people over the years that have decided to go into sports medicine, and a lot of it, I remember Dr. Pono being at, some of the games and helping us out. So I'm really excited about this. I again, back to time management, we're a big school, so we have multiple sports going on. So, so my question here would be, I'm sure you can bounce from one to the other, as you're needed, and I'm sure you have a partnership with the fire department, and so you can call them and then they'll come in. And we've been very fortunate. I think we've only had a fire department come, a couple times over the years. But so, do you do a written report that you can give to the parent, for instance, that they could share with the doctor, as so when the student goes to Kaiser, let's say, there's something, and it wouldn't have to be anything elaborate, but just something basically, that you treated a concussion or something, so that there would be some kind of a flow.
Yeah, we have like a referral form that we use that has information on it, and then actually when you flip it over, it's got information where the doctor can communicate right back to the athletic trainer with any restrictions or anything like that, what they've seen as well. So we have forms like that we use. And then, like I said, we have a really good working relationship with not only Dr. Nord's office and our other doctors that work in our sports medicine program, but with Dr. Moore at Kaiser, our athletic trainers call, and they, and the staff there knows if one of the athletic trainers from the school is calling, they get them scheduled right in. Same thing, we get that communication.
Okay. And back to what Member Crocker was talking about as far as parent education, if you have to sit an athlete down for one game because of a concussion, it's important on the way we communicate. And I know the coach does that and everything, but a lot of times they might lean on you to kind of explain to them the reason why their son, cannot play the next game. So I'm sure that's part of what you do also.
Absolutely. And we have like one-page handouts that try to have very easy bullet points. So we don't want to hand someone a 12-page document and say, here, here's your son got a concussion or your daughter got a concussion here. We try to have very simple bullet point things to look for, and what not to look for. And the athletic trainers, and the nice thing about having someone dedicated to a school where it's the same person that's there every day, there's a level of trust that between the athlete, not only the athlete, but also the coaches, they get to recognize and get that rapport with the athletic trainer that, they know, okay, whatever the trainer says, then when the trainer says you can go back in, you can go back in, that kind of thing.
So Coach K gets to pick whatever trainer she wants, so she'll get the best one all the time, is that?
Of course.
Okay. Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, and we would include her, and because we would have to hire somebody for this position.
Got it. Thanks a lot for working with us.
Thank you. So I love the idea, and I think the service that we would be getting in this is great for our students and for our schools and our athletic department. However, I think the timing of this is less than optimal, as you can already ascertain from our comments earlier. We are facing a deep budget cut in the next 2 to 3 years of over $4 million. And so just again, we discussed it earlier today, where one line item is reduction of $85,000 in books and supplies for our classrooms, if we were to enact one of the proposals that was presented. So I'm having a hard time reconciling the funding. I'd go for the 1 year, but I don't think they would go for it, right?
You would go for 1 year until we get our budget stuff taken care of.
Well, ideally, we're doing the 1 year because we know that eventually it's something that's leading to getting something in place at your school for you. We could look at options for a 1 year, but I don't know.
Same price.
She has something to say.
Kimberly Hart's here. She's the big wig. She's the head of my division.
The money person.
As I said, I think we're here to try to work with you. I think we understand there's a need, and we want to try to do that. And we understand that there are budget constraints. We would like, ultimately we would like a commitment, because we feel that's the best way to really service the students and the community and the parents. But if it is something that you'd like to try for a year and see where we are willing to work with you. Again, I think that it's something that we feel is the best for the community and the students and the parents. And so willing to see what we can do if that's the only option.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe we can bring back another version of it, perhaps with amendment to the proposal or any of that sort that includes any type of alternative funding, sources, or different variations that's a little bit more budget friendly. Just see what we can do, because I think for the most part we like it, but then we're also tasked with assuring that our district stays solvent. Now, $27,000 in year 3 is not necessarily going to break the proverbial bank, but everything adds up. And so if on the second proposal, perhaps boosters can pick up some of the tab, perhaps there's some donations that can pick up some of the tab. So if we can come up with some, supplemental sources of income, not that we're escaping completely from our end of it, but just something that reflects that we're not picking up the entire tab, we being the district.
Yeah, I mean, if we could figure out some partnership with working with you, with those funds, because then, but we don't want to get into a situation where then we have a situation that we're also having challenges with the funding too, so that then we want to be some type of partnership.
Absolutely. Member Thomas.
Yes, CIF would like nothing better than for the state to mandate that we have athletic trainers for every school. About 22% of our high schools in the state have full-time athletic trainers, and maybe twice that many have part-time athletic trainers. But as Member Wynn mentioned, or President Wynn mentioned, we're looking at a time when this program would cause us to increase the cost. We're looking at overtime, decreasing the costs and going deep into our reserves. I'm wondering if we can look at the community, Coach K, and see if the boosters, they're coming up with a lot of money for transportation. Is there a way to look at outside funding for this through the boosters? Is there a way to trade off expenses? When we add a staff position, especially in these tight times, we need to take away a staff position or the equivalent of it. So perhaps the district can look at other ways that we can fund this going forward, because if we can do it the first year and it buys us some time to figure out a funding mechanism that still allows us to meet our $4 million deficit spending over the next 3 years, that's the best of all worlds, because I think there's things that we're spending money on that are far less important than this in athletics and other areas. So I'd like to see it happen if we can afford it.
Yeah, and I do think that, boosters will be willing. And as you know, the Booster Club consists of about 6 to 7 people that are already organizing fundraisers that just are required to maintain what we have. And we're looking to try to raise $80,000 to $90,000 a year with the help of those 6 people. I'm sure that, like you mentioned, when you get something, you have to take something away, and we have had to do that. We have had to make adjustments to our budget. We have had to kind of reprioritize what we're going to do. Obviously, this is something that we wouldn't be invested in, and I'm certainly open to finding help with that. I certainly appreciate the efforts of Washington Hospital to help with that, because, they are absorbing a lot of the cost as well. And so, I mentioned before that if this program was in New Haven, that's costing them $52,000 a year, we're looking at, for us, on average, just over $18,000 a year for the 3-year agreement. Community donations are great. They're hard to come by unless we have some influence maybe, or some help from maybe Newark Rotary or some other organizations that would be willing to help us. And we would be...
How about 2,000?
Yeah. Well, like I said, anytime you get something else would have to go away, and anything will help. And of course, I'm certainly happy to help with those efforts to try to collaborate with other community groups and services, and boosters will be nothing but supportive and do whatever they can to do that. And so we'll do what we need to do and see how we can make it work.
Superintendent?
As a high school, I know there's a way to raise money. And I think in this other conversation that happened today, there's this idea of revenue streams. So I think I could work with you guys to figure out some other ways where we could find some revenue streams to fund this internally. I think there's a way to do that. I think it would definitely might require some policy change or some other things that we can do to support it. But I think there's a way to do that through athletics. And our partners, certainly with the boosters, I know they've been very supportive. And if you told any other booster or any other state how much boosters raise here in California compared to what other states fund, it's remarkable. So I think the desire is here. I think we probably need to kind of approach it a little differently than we would normally. And maybe there's some other ways we can find some funding streams to figure out how to do it over time. I think we just have to be creative and try to do it so that it is sustainable. I think about this long term. I think about my own son, who's a pitcher. I think about how many kids, how many of these injuries can we get ahead of, and what would I want for my own son? And I think that's kind of where I anchor to. But I think we can come back to the drawing board, and I'll work with you. Let's try to come up with a different plan and a way to find some interesting funding streams to make this happen, and then we'll bring it back.
Just from a general sense, what does year 4, 5, 6 look like? Is it flat now, or does it continue to escalate?
It starts at 27, it's 2%.
Yeah, I mean, what we would look to do, I mean, we would probably revisit at that point, but I think that we could continue. I think the hospital would most likely, and Kimberly can correct me, but would be willing to continue to put in the 25%. Now we do try to, in these numbers, we have a 2% cost of living increase. We're not paying the trainers that much already, but, and I just want to let you know too, that these numbers, this is our cost. Like, there's no markup on this. This is, in fact, we lose money. I mean, it doesn't include any of my salary, Dr. Noor's medical directorship. I mean, none of that. This is just how much it's going to cost us to staff that person to be there. So, I mean, it includes a little bit of some supervisory. We have one full-time athletic trainer that's also a supervisor that would actually be helping this person as well, and helps the other schools that we have. But there's very little besides that. Just that this is trying to meet a community need, what it's trying to do. And as Coach K said, you know, when she did the math, it's about $16 per athlete that participates. So maybe worth polling the parents. You know, we had an athletic trainer here to be there every practice for your kid. Would you be willing to give $16 more when you play sports? And that would pay for it over the 3 years. So something. I'll bet parents would pay more than $16.
You can't make it.
One copay to the doctor is probably at least $25. So if the athletic trainer treats one thing, you would have taken them to the doctor, right, and the copay. Or if you stop one ambulance ride that cost them $1,500, you know, something.
Great, thank you. Ms. Crock?
I was just going to say that as a parent and grandparent, people involved in athletics, there's no doubt in my mind that I would give you a $20 bill right now for having that service available for my grandchildren, my kids. And I think most parents in Newark feel that way. And it's not a matter of assessing them, but a matter of making known that we feel it's important enough for our students to have somebody there, and we need help in funding this. There are organizations in Newark that should be able to help with that. So I think that it's a doable thing, and I commend our superintendent for coming off. I think our savings in the insurance we need to look at, and then that's a wash, so whatever that might be, and then whatever it is that we can generate from donation from the parents, I should think would be a no-brainer. I mean, there's no way in the world that I would think this would be too expensive a thing. So I think it can be done. Whether we can vote on it tonight, I don't know what you need to know.
Just discussion.
Just discussion. Okay, then I think that you understand that we're coming from the same place you are. I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's just a matter of figuring out how to make it work.
I think it's a discussion about how
Yeah,
Just gotta figure out how, and I think we can figure that out.
I just have one final piece, if you don't mind. I'm sure that if you come back with a different figure for the 1 year, that the monies will probably have to change. And we understand that. It just allows us a year to look at alternative ways to raise the money. It's frustrating that we're in times where we're asking, teachers to raise money and athletic directors to, the boosters and everything. It's just the way things are. Now, to answer the insurance question real quick, in order to save money on liability, you normally need some kind of experience. Like we call it a loss run, where we can see the difference between the injuries prior to the athletic trainer being there and then how much of a difference it made. So if we don't have that, maybe you can help us based on your experience with other schools on giving us some kind of a history. And if you share that with us, then we can share it with the insurance carrier to see if there's a way to save money. But they need to see a history of the difference between having an athletic trainer there and not having one there, and how that equals, less visits to the doctor or to the hospital or whatever. Okay.
And I believe the National Athletic Trainer Association might have some of that data.
Right.
Because we've seen where some schools have gotten a decrease in insurance premiums by having an athletic.
Yeah, if you can get that information to us, it'll help us a whole bunch. Okay, thank you.
I guess my other thought too is that I've been a Kaiser member forever. My kids were on Kaiser. I know that they support things, and I'm not sure whether they support this kind of thing or not. I know they're doing it by giving someone that you can contact, and you have the smooth kind of thing, but whether there's any kind of monetary, whether it eases things for them and it becomes cost effective for you to be there doing what you need to do so that they don't have long-term injuries that they have to take care of. It's preventative medicine from their perspective.
Well, your point is very well taken. We reached out to some of the medical leadership in orthopedics at Kaiser, actually the folks that run orthopedics for the entire Northern California region, with that comment in mind. And while he agreed with it in principle, they weren't able to generate any funds for it. We've also explored a number of community options, and as kind of see here, it's a great thing to rally around, but it's hard for folks to get behind it. And from the booster perspective, Newark's actually done better than most schools already, providing the financials for supplies and such. So it's not an easy thing to get funding elsewhere. I think that it's, from my perspective, my main point was to pitch tonight and inform. Then it's of a value judgment on what the group wants to do. We can certainly look into one-year options and such, and Kimberly might be able to speak a little bit about it here. And I only bring that up because it's a good time to be doing recruiting for a trainer. So, pushing it out a few months gets us a little bit behind the 8 ball when we want them there working already hired come August. So I don't.
Yeah, I was just talking with Kimberly about it, and she was saying that if we know that we're going to continue to work with you guys for the future and try to figure out, we could go 1 year at the 1 year on this agreement here with you guys, and then with the understanding that we're going to try to work to figure out how to fund it, and if it ends up not having, doesn't happen. But I mean, ideally, it would be the idea that, okay, now we'll start at year 2 next year if you guys are able to figure out funding, because I'm pretty confident that once the parents start seeing the benefit of this and the understanding of this, that there's going to be a lot of pressure if it gets taken away.
There is some wiggle room in what we charge for game tickets, and I know there's not much.
Well, we are required to stick to what the league gate prices are, so we can't charge any more or less.
Right, got it. Okay.
But we could have a bucket there, for a trainer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 15.1, which is consent item, personnel, 15.2.
Employee
Oh, I'm sorry, 14.1, employee organizations, NTA, CSA, NUMA, once, twice, thrice, thank you. 15.2, personnel report, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Moved by Rodriguez.
15-1.
15-1, yeah.
Yeah, we're accepting, but personnel, we're doing one at a time, so 15, yeah.
Oh, I see 51 is not an
There's-
item.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
15-2.
Okay,
15.2, moved by,
right.
okay, moved by member Rodriguez, second by Crocker, is that
Oh,
right?
that sounds good.
Okay, please vote. 5 ayes, thank you. 15.3, appointment of assistant principal Newark Junior High School. Is there a motion by member Preciado? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by member Thomas, please vote. Member Preciado. Thank you, 5 ayes. 15.4, appointment of alternative program administrator, principal, McGregor Campus. Is there a motion? Moved by member Rodriguez, second by member Preciado. Please vote. 5 ayes. Thank you very much.
Just recognize.
I think we've met and sent our goodbyes. Thank you very much.
You swear because you had doubts? No.
Next, the series of 16, so 16.1 to 16.11, consent item, agenda item. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
By member Crocker, is there a second? By member Preciado, please vote. Five ayes. Thank you. Expulsion case 17.
Oftentimes we read the resolutions for Day of the Teacher, or the,
Yeah, let's do it.
16.9, okay.
the resolution.
All right, let's start with you.
Okay. Whereas the 27th Annual Day of the Teacher will be observed in all schools and educational institutions of the state on May 10th, 2017, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Newark Unified School District wishes to commend and express its appreciation to the teachers who serve the students of the Newark Unified School District, and
whereas the Board of Trustees and the Superintendent recognize that unique and highly specialized skills are required to meet the varied needs of the young people served by the district instructional programs and are proud of the success that these programs have achieved, and
Whereas it is further recognized that the quality and success of students is the instructional outstanding performance of the teachers who have committed their considerable skills, talents, and energies to meeting the needs of their special students.
Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees and the Superintendent do hereby thank and commend
the teachers of the Newark Unified School District for the outstanding and meaningful contribution they are making to students and families served by Newark schools, passed and adopted May 2nd, 2017 by the following votes: 5 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 abstained.
thank you very much. On to 17.1, expulsion case number E1617.
the classified.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're
Okay.
running up against time. My apologies.
Whereas the legislature of the state of California has officially designated the third week in May of each year as Classified School Employees Week as time to recognize the many contributions of classified school employees to public education, and
whereas the members of the Board of Trustees and the Superintendent are personally aware and appreciative of the high standard of quality and service provided by the members of the classified staff, and
Whereas the services provided by the members of the classified staff have a profound and significant effect on the operations of programs operated by the Newark Unified School District.
Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees and the Superintendent do hereby recognize and commend the members of the Newark Unified School District California School Employees Association, Local 208.
For their outstanding effort in serving the district and meeting the needs of the students, staff, and parents of the Newark Unified Schools, passed and adopted on May 2nd, 2017 by the following votes: 5 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 abstained.
thank you. And there isn't one for administrators, right?
No.
Why not? October, okay, got it.
Every day.
Every day.
All right, now can we move on to 17.1, expulsion case number E1617-09.
Move acceptance?
Moved by Member Crocker, second by Member Rodriguez. Please vote. Five ayes. Thank you. 17.2, E1617-10.
Move acceptance?
By Member
I'll
Crocker,
second that.
second by Member Thomas. Please vote. Five ayes. Thank you very much. 18.1, Board of Education Committee reports, announcements, requests, debrief. Let's start with Member Thomas.
I attended something this week, didn't I?
You won the teachers something?
Yeah, I went for the May 1st March with the teachers, Fremont and Newark teachers. It was a great turnout and a great walk across the freeway and carrying all of our banners and signs. So that's primarily what I did this week.
Member Rodriguez.
I went to the Citizens for a Better Community, and Member Thomas was there, and we got to, there was a few Newark people there, and this is a organization out of Fremont to promote Chinese awareness and supporting the Chinese and also the whole community, and it was great. I have one request. The Hispanic Community Affairs Council is having their 35-year scholarship luncheon on Friday between 11:30 and 12. We're going to start at the Newark Hilton Doubletree. So those of you who be nice if you can come. If you can't, any donation that you give me will go toward inviting a teacher from the high school to come, and because it's expensive, $65, and they can't afford to come at that price. So any help would be appreciated. That's all I have. Thank you.
Member Crocker.
I have two items. One is that we had the State of the City address at the Newark Doubletree, Newark Fremont Doubletree. It was a very interesting time, a very up kind of presentation, and it was a very good example of how well our city does work. The second item has to do with positioning of the president and superintendent. And we had talked before about changing the location of the president to be in your seat, Mr. Preciado, so that way that there'd be access for the superintendent and the president without having to pass notes. And so I think that would be, I would like to see that we have that redone or done by the next meeting. That means we have to change something in terms of electronics, whatever it might be.
Well, we had to do a discussion.
I thought we had had the discussion before.
No. Well, we did, but we didn't come to.
Well, I would like to have it on the agenda so that we can have that discussion.
Okay.
Since it's not you don't think it's a done deal. I thought it was. Okay.
No, yeah, because we just, I think we said we're going to leave it unless it.
All right.
Yeah, we did. We said we were going to leave it unless it was something that either Superintendent Sanchez or President Nguyen actually
Felt strongly about it.
Felt strongly, exactly. Thank you, Member Preciado.
Member Preciado.
That's where we left it.
Comments?
Nothing.
Nothing. And I shall pass also. Thank you very, nope, Superintendent. We were good?
On the movement?
No, 19.9, 19.1.
Oh, I'm ready.
Your
I
concluding
have
comments.
handouts.
Okay. Concluding comments.
Go.
First of all, I want to clarify that the person that spoke earlier about the issue at the school with the teacher has been investigated. There's a letter that's been issued. She probably hasn't got it at her home yet, but we've handled that situation, and I will follow up with her. But I know that that's been investigated, and there is a conclusion. So just want to clarify that and put that in the public record. Second of all, I do want to pass around a calendar. We've tried to cover it with as many cabinet and myself. There's promotions, there's a lot of end-of-year activities. If you guys would be so kind to find one or two that you might be able to attend, especially where you see there's no one that's signed up yet. that'd be great. Or if you want to go with one of the cabinet members that has signed up where you see an empty box, you don't need to do it now. Please leave it with Patty and I this week. That'll help us kind of fill in the blanks and let people know who's attending what for the end of the year activities. That'd be very helpful. The last item I'll share with you here is a list of requests and what's coming on the agenda. We need your help prioritizing. When do you want to see these coming up? This is kind of our first draft. That, if you look at the far right column, it says urgency or status. Even if you think, out of this list, these are the ones the most urgent to me, then we know that needs to come in sooner than later. Patty, anything you would like to add about this?
No, I think you've captured it. I actually shared it with all, I believe, in the board update or just recently. So it would be helpful for us to begin to add those requests that you've had into the upcoming leftover board meeting.
And any new additions as well as we start mapping out things. But we want to make sure that we're getting you guys to help us prioritize what you want to see on upcoming agendas. With that, I think that's all of my updates. Is that right? Anything else I'm forgetting, Patty?
Oh, the bio. I want to thank you for pushing us to get that bio done.
That's good. I think the website launch is looking good.
Oh, really? I haven't
Getting
seen it.
getting the bios on there for the board is going to be critical, and thanks for cooperating.
No, Ms. Sandoval's very good at bugging us until we get something done.
Speaking of the bios, I still need several of you to, it's something that could be done very easy for you since we contract with Voler. So if you could provide me with your CV or your resume, then we can do the rest. And I would like to have that ASAP as our launch date is fast approaching.
Or next time, you're going to name names.
Absolutely.
No, we'll only
Since
name
I'm
who's
done.
finished it. Thank you for finishing this.
Thank you. 9:53, meeting adjourned.
And the Warriors won.
Oh, good.